I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular Township Board meeting for Tuesday, October 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee DeMink. Trustee Vosberg. Here. Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Clerk Barry here.
Item 4, the approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Barry, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Clerk Barry,
Mr. Supervisor, just a question on the agenda.
please.
Last meeting, there was talk of a closed session to get an update on the contracts, specifically the fire contract. And I don't know if it was an oversight or if that's something that we're going to add. Do we have a closed session to add for an update on the fire department?
No.
So was that an oversight or
No,
like
no.
a lie, or what do we call that?
No, we are still in mediation with them. There's another date scheduled, so rather than schedule it, I chose to push it off until that date passes.
Will the board be updated on any of that soon, or
If there's progress in that, yes.
lack of progress is also notable, could cost us money, and I think the board should be aware. So could we get an update at the next board meeting?
We'll see.
Independent of the progress? You'll decide that
Yeah, we'll-
singularly?
We'll see with the Labor Council, we'll see.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Clerk Barry.
Clerk Barry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 5, presentations. There is a presentation tonight in regards to the recent floods. Mr. O'Connor will give an update on some progress that we've made or some discoveries that we made in light of the flood event. And Mitch, I'll turn the floor over to you, and this is just one of several that are going to come our way.
Okay. Good evening. As Supervisor Kersten stated, this will be a brief overview of the rain event of late August. The first slide is from a rain gauge at 21 Mile Road and I-94. It's the closest rain gauge that we have, and it does kind of quantify the rain event at that particular location. And as you can see, 2.76 inches fell on August 23rd. The next day, 2.93 inches. So those are significant rain events. And then the next slide will kind of show you where they show up on the NOAA, the frequency chart. Individually, they were a 10-year event and a 25-year event, but if you combine the two, it was a 100-year, 2-day rain event. So that is a big event. The next slide that I want to show is kind of, this is the township from 24 Mile Road south to to Lake St. Clair, and it does kind of define where the water goes, where the rainwater goes. You know, some of the water evaporates or evaporates and never gets to the county drains or the rivers. Some of the water perks into the ground or into the grass and doesn't get to the drains. But the water that does get to the drains gets to these drains as highlighted here. These are all county drains. And then ultimately they end up in Lake St. Clair. The river, which is the furthest thing east, is the Salt River, which isn't under the jurisdiction of the county. That's actually under the jurisdiction of the state. So this map kind of shows where the water goes when it rains. Most of it gets to these drains. And then anything that is right on the lake discharges and outlets right into the lake. The next thing I want to talk about is the Plat Act of 1972, which required when you designed or when you platted land or developed a subdivision, you would have to build, among other things, public roads, public water main, public sanitary sewer, and you also had to have a designed storm sewer system, which would include collecting the rainwater and conveying it to an outlet. And most of these subs were also required to store their water before they discharged to the county drains. So highlighted on, and during the 90s, the township actually accepted the maintenance of 6 ponds with the platted subs, and that's highlighted on this map as the green. So that's like Brycewood subdivision, Winchester, Ruby. There's 6 subdivisions that have storage ponds with design systems that the township actually maintains. And again, those storm sewer systems were designed to handle certain events, and then the ponds were designed to handle a certain volume. So if, you know, if it rains on the pavement, about 90% of that water actually gets into the storm sewer system and is conveyed to a pond. If the rain hits the green belt or the lawn, about 15 to 20% of that water actually gets to the storm sewer and then gets conveyed to the pond. What happens is, though, if the ground is saturated, if the pavement's saturated, which is what happened on that second rain event, then those numbers actually go up. You know, more water is actually getting to the storm sewer instead of going into the ground because the ground is already saturated. So this map, again, shows the platted subs that we operate and maintain the ponds. As a part of that, we mow the upper bank of the pond. There's usually pumps on there, duplex pump system. All of them have a pump system, pumped outlet. We maintain the pumps, and then we also maintain the electricity to the pumps, and then that cost each year is assessed to the property owners in that district. So if you live in one of those subdivisions where the township maintains the pond, you do get an annual an assessment cost to maintain that pond. One thing we haven't done, you know, the pond is built, let's say the pond is as big as this auditorium or this office. It's designed to handle a certain amount of rain. Over time, this pond gets overgrown with, you know, vegetation. And now the pond, instead of having the capacity of this place, a lot of that capacity is lost to, you know, vegetation, small trees, phragmites. And these ponds, since they have been constructed in the 90s, have not been, you know, the area where the water is stored, that area has not been cleaned out. So one of the things we are doing is estimating the cost to bring all these ponds, there's 6 of them, back to their original design, original capacity, get an estimated cost for that, and each pond is a little bit different. In fact, each agreement with each pond is a little bit different. So we've had Attorney Siebert review each pond's agreement to see if we can do this. But the intent is to prepare an estimate to bring each pond back to its original design. And then that cost will be significant compared to what they've been annually charged to go in there and clear and grub it and to regrade it and re-turf it, which will be a lot more than what they've been paying annually. So the intent is to prepare these estimates and then have separate meetings with each subdivision and let them know what we as a township are planning on doing to making the subdivision pond more efficient. And that will be happening this winter. The estimates are being prepared, and then in the wintertime, we will schedule meetings with each district to go over the options, I guess. You also see, since 1972 in the Plat Act, there is also a lot more developed area. You can tell just by the road maps, and all of those developments also have designed storm sewer systems, most of them with some sort of storage, but those are all privately operated and privately maintained. Starting right around 2000, almost every development was with condominiums, and condominiums have active homeowners associations because a condominium is responsible usually for the roads, you know, cutting the grass. There's a lot of common area in condominiums, so those homeowners associations are usually very active. What happens in these subdivisions that are platted, a lot of times the homeowners association just kind of disbands just for, you know, lack of interest or lack of work that takes place. If you could put that back up one more time. There is, in a lot of land that wasn't developed before, or was developed before the 70s, just a single family, doesn't have a designed storm sewer system. So for some examples like Cotton Road or Sugar Bush, Sutton, Jefferson, all of the older roads with a lot of like single families, there is really no designed storm sewer system for those areas. Typically a building permit was obtained, and then a driveway culvert was installed through a permit with the road commission. The township had, you know, there was no design to review and approve, so that was an agreement between that property owner and the road commission as far as installing that culvert, including the size of the culvert and the depth at what the culvert was put. And that is, you know, just eyeballing, I would say roughly 20% of the township falls under that category. There is no design storm sewer system for about 20% of the township. There have been some things that we have done since the flood event. We have had meetings with the county public works. As you can see, most of the township outlets into county drains. So we had been doing, up until this year, we usually contribute $25,000. They would contribute $25,000 to open drain cleanouts. They would set the priorities and the locations. Based on this meeting, the county has agreed to increase their contribution, I believe, to $150,000, and the township will request to contribute $100,000, which is a big step up, like 4 times higher, to cleaning the county drains to make them work more efficiently and get the, you know, convey the water out to the lake. We also have met, or we haven't met, we've had discussions with the county road commission, who operates and maintains the roads and the road drainage, to discuss possibly a ditching program or a culvert program. And I would classify those talks as ongoing. Nothing has been presented that appears to have an action at the end of it. Yeah, and this was kind of a large oversight, so I would like to open it up to questions if you have any.
I'll bring it back to the board. Questions from the board? Trustee Domingue?
Mitch, real quick, when you dissected all this, I recall back in 2004 to 2008, we had a monster rain. Jim Ellis was sitting on the board. It was my first term. And I remember Hennings all over there by 21 and 94. It was a monster rain like we had here. Did you happen to come across any information when that one was? I know it was between 04 and 08 because, pardon? 5? Yeah, okay, you were probably at Silicon County Commission, yeah. Because that was a monster one too, and I remember everything flooding, and I was with Jim over on Hennings over there by 21, and it was like unbelievable. That's before a lot of these subs were built back then.
Yeah. And again, everything is designed. I mean, the chairs were sitting on the tables. Everything is designed before it's built. So there is a design limit for everything, including storm sewer pipes and drains. And if you exceed that, then, you know, you're gonna have surcharging. I would like to kind of go to a different, I mean, because it did trigger something. You know, we have separate sanitary sewer systems that are separate from the storm sewer. They're separate pipes, they go to different places. And that is, the sanitary sewer system, we are absolutely responsible for, the township. Same thing with the water main. Our sanitary sewer responded quickly to this rain event, or the second rain event. You know, usually groundwater gets into the pipe through infiltration, but it happens like a day or two after the event. It takes a while for the water to get down into the soil, into the pipes. But during this second rain event, our sanitary sewer system responded quickly, implying there's a lot of rainwater in there, which would further imply that it's not infiltration, it's inflow, which is a direct connection somehow. You know, somehow rainwater was getting into our sanitary sewer system, and that's not good. So we have that. I'm so glad we stumbled here, but we have started interrogating the sanitary sewer system, starting with the manholes, just to make sure that none of the structures are offset, that all the frame and covers are set, that we're not getting rainwater into our system. Specifically if our manhole's in a ditch and the ditch is full of water, and if that manhole isn't tight, you know, now you're getting a lot of rainwater into there. So we have started interrogating all the manholes, which may lead to raising the manholes, rebuilding the frame and cover, wrapping them, and making them more watertight. Yep.
I have some questions.
I think the board goes first.
No, presentation, sir. Can you bring it back up the board any further?
I have some questions on
Further?
what he said about Sutton.
That's- Any further questions from the board? Questions from the board? Trustee Vosberg?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So were all the standards that you've been talking about, those were all in compliance? Like when the subdivisions were built, whatever was the standard at the time is, what, did you find any that were out of compliance in
No,
terms
no.
of their, when they started?
Again, we checked the 6 ponds, those subdivisions, they were all designed and built per the standards. The pipe itself is designed for a 10-year, 1-hour event, which is roughly 2 inches. The pond is designed for a volume of 2 inches over the entire site. And those are the design parameters. In fact, those are still in the township ordinance right now. It is a little misleading because a 2-inch volume, every drop of rain that hits the ground doesn't end up in the pond.
Right.
A lot of it ends up in the grass or on the pavement and evaporating. But again, these rain events probably exceeded the capacity for sure of the pipes taking the water to the pond. I mean, I think every backyard had, the system was surcharging and water was, it just couldn't get through the pipes fast enough. And then when it got to the ponds, all the ponds have pumps to pump them out, but they also, the level reaches and it overflows into the drain. So if the pumps fail, it reaches a certain level and then it overflows out of the pond into the open drain. But they were all built correctly.
So you'd also mentioned that the cleaning, can we require other subdivisions for which we are not responsible for? Well, we're not responsible, technically the homeowners are responsible for it, but there's 6 of them you said that we will do the maintenance on if necessary. How about the other ones? Can we insist that they be cleaned out on a regular basis, or who has authority over that?
There is, and recently with each development, there is, we call it a stormwater maintenance agreement, which states if the development or the developer doesn't maintain the pond or maintain his system, then we would come in and do it and charge them. We haven't done that to date. We've never, you got to issue a violation. They have to. That has not happened. We have not maintained any ponds or storm sewer systems as a result of that. But we do have. I guess that is an option.
Last question, are there any that we know of that probably need to be at least looked at? You don't, if you don't know.
No.
offhand, but-
I mean, you really don't think about them until it rains really hard, and then. But there are almost every pond has some sort of growth, or I mean, they all have phragmites or willow trees, or very few of them are maintained in the actual area that stores the water temporarily.
All right, thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. So this is one piece of probably many pieces that go into this. Are we looking at the next step being that we'll develop like a bigger plan or kind of something ongoing so that it's now solidified that, permanent, that we're actually managing it?
We have been, most of the storm sewer outlets are the county drains, so they drive that bus. We have been meeting with the county. We've offered to, in fact, we met with property owners today at the Sutherland Olmec drain at 23 Mile Road near I-94, which it's the new car dealership, Shea Auto Dealership, and then downstream of that, Meldrum Brothers. Those outlet into the county drain, so it is the county's drain. But we have met with the county on site to see if there's something that the township can do to kind of facilitate, making it better. And then the county road commission owns and operates the drains in the county right-of-ways. The only drains we own and operate are like the drains on this property, not the county drains, but the storm sewer parking lot, Brandenburg Park. We only own and operate the storm sewers on township properties. Other than that, it's owned and operated by condo associations, the county drain office, or the county road commission. So since we don't own it, operate or maintain it, or get any money to own it, operate and maintain it, it's hard for us to come up with a plan to address the problem. But we can certainly, again, meet with the county road commission or drain office and offer our support or, changing design standards to make things work better.
Just to add on, again, we started this right the next week when we brought everybody in, and it is problematic because a lot of the things we don't control, the ditches, the drains. But one thing we did do was look at the retention ponds.
Yep.
And look at the original design and engineered specs that the resolutions directed. One of the issues we're running into is we're going back, trying to pull records from resolutions that maybe in today's in legal environment need some clarity. So we are doing that. We engaged our legal counsel right that first week, and we've been sending them the resolutions that address each one of these retention ponds, and ultimately, who is responsible for the care, maintenance, and upkeep, with the goal of returning them to the original specifications and design for each district. Some of the historical things, and when I say historical, going back 12, 15 years, is there has been no work done on them. One of them in particular, if I can mention, is the drain that actually is 600 foot in length, buried, that we don't think there's ever been an inspection to. And it actually comes off of Donner, crosses Donner, and goes into another side of the west side of Donner, and then empties into a ditch, a county drain. Finding who has the authority to return that and inspect it and who's responsible for it is basically the homeowner. So again, those are the models that we're trying to vet out, see legally what we have to do, what we can do, and who is ultimately responsible. Now that's just the retention ponds for each subdivision. Ultimately, it falls into a county drain, and that is the next layer that we have to address. And again, as Mitch said, we began that process right off the bat, meeting with the drain commissioner, trying to come up with a plan. We've been very aggressive in the township. Even back last summer, the board approved a partnership with the Drain Commission where we began cleaning the Fish Creek and Meldum Drain. And you'll see later in the agenda, there's actually a very aggressive request to continue this. One of them being, as Mitch had mentioned, 23 Mile Road, the southern Ovid Drain,
Yep.
which comes from the north part of the township all the way down to this property here. And just a quick on-site inspection of it, there are definitely concerns there, and I guess, what's the term, Mitch, restrictions?
Yeah, there's, the drain isn't operating properly. If it was designed for 100 cubic feet per second, it's probably getting 30 cubic feet per second, again, which isn't a big deal until it rains hard. Then that water that's supposed to go through that drain starts backing up and affecting everything upstream of it.
And technically, for lack of better, there are several choke points that caused the problem. And one of them, we believe, was the reason the car dealership actually had 2.5 feet of water in its parking lot. And again, the only way that resolves itself is by partnering with the drain commissioner and trying to come up with solutions. And we began that almost immediately. Actually met with 2 of the large property owners today to tell them what we believe obviously they're going to have to do, because the ditch, it's made very clear to us, the ditch and the maintenance of the ditch, and this goes for drainage and clean out, but Phragmites in particular, are the property owner's responsibility. And that's been made very clear. So we're trying to relay that message. We'll begin that package. And what the Drain Commission has offered is, if this request goes through tonight, is they will actually come in here in the next coming weeks, sit down with each one of the districts and make themselves available to the residents to discuss the drains that go through their subdivisions and see what they can do to alleviate some of these restrictions that have been found. And again, Candace Miller's office been more than aggressive with us and working with us, and they're looking for the same solution. They're just this is a problem throughout the county, not just Chesterfield. And if I, just a quick comment, I was told today that the parking lot height above sea level is at the dealership on 23 Mile Road is the same height of the water, 594?
592.
592,
Yeah, I think the water elevation is like 578,
yes.
but I'm talking about Lake St.
The
Clair.
floor, the
Yeah.
floor of their building.
Yeah, but the water, as the floodplain, as you move up into the land, that elevation rises with the land. So the flooding kind of moves. The flood elevation, if the lake is at 578, that flood elevation isn't taken all the way upstream. It rises with the land.
Just, I'm sorry.
Trustee Joseph.
Just a clarification, Mitch. In the end of your presentation, you were talking about, that there's a number of issues from the homeowner's responsibility to the township's responsibility, and then the drain commission and the road commission, and sorting all of that out, it gets a little bit tricky. But in terms of, and I can save this question for the actual agenda item, but in that packet that I just, that we have, that came for item B, number of really good pictures that kind of highlight all of the different areas where you can see whatever the original creek design was, the volume of water that it could carry, from the specs at the original have got to be dramatically diminished, because you can't, in some of these pictures, you can't even make out that there's a drainage area in there, it's so overgrown.
Yeah.
But the question becomes, like in the match, in the proposal, would it be fair to say that we're putting Chesterfield Township residents' money towards the responsibility of Chesterfield Township, or is this similar to sort of the road match? Like it's a county obligation, but they're not going to do it unless we match. So what is the proposal as you lay out the presentation? What are we looking at? Are we looking at contributing to? It's our problem because the water's in our homes.
Yeah.
But is it the cause of the the county responsible drain area or ditch or culvert, or what are we looking to eradicate or contribute to solving with our match? Is it putting it towards county responsibility, or are they our responsibility and in concert with the county? What are we matching?
Yeah, and that is, comparing to the road commission, it's a great comparison, because
Yeah.
and again, here's my understanding of the county drains. The county could, if you could put up, Karen, the map that had the county drainage districts, the county could, and let's pick any drain on there. Let's pick the Meldrum. The county could initiate a drain clean out, and then whatever that cost is, assess it to all the property owners within that drain, with the benefiting properties. I don't know that they do that, and I don't know if they, that takes political willpower, and I don't know if they're interested in. And I guess that would be the ultimate end if nothing happens. Eventually, they would have to do that. We have to clean these drains. Whoever benefits, we're going to set up a drainage district. That's who's paying. So we are contributing township money, but it is to a township-specific problem, though. So we're contributing township money from the general fund, or ultimately, I guess it would come from the taxpayers of the township paying directly to the drain office. That's kind of a cloudy answer, but.
No, it's a cloudy problem, because it's very difficult legitimately to determine, where the problem, we know where the problem continues to get exacerbated as it moves down the line. It crosses through all of these jurisdictions. You may start out, in a subdivision that has a detention pond that's been neglected. And so you go, well, if your detention pond was holding the volume of water it was supposed to have held, then it would have compromised
Okay.
It's hard to determine what has already sort of been collected in the way of taxes that go to the county, whether it's roads or drains. And then you get residents get kind of taxed again, because they have to put a 50-50 match in order to get roads that, or ditches that were, so I'll wait for the agenda item. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Item 6, department reports. There are no department reports. Trustee Joseph, yep. Trustee Anderson.
Okay, we had our meeting this past Wednesday, just a few of the items. I'm going to talk about the police. First thing, the open house with the fire department. There were south of 500 individuals attended, great turnout. They're looking for a larger location, and we're talking about a 3-hour window. Was over there, Trustee Joseph was. Great show all around, what our fire does. Talk about the police department reservations, or renovations here. They're working on the parking lot, working on the water issue with the existing police building. That's been an ongoing problem. And dispatch they're redoing, and there's also been some structural problems that have been discovered that have to be addressed. Do you want to talk about personnel at all? Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the balance of our conversation was still a little bit kind of down the road, and there's a lot of prospecting that's kind of going on to flush out exactly what we're going to be looking at with building renovations. We did talk a little bit about Officer Connell going to the new, new to us, the Phantom program, which is the federal anti-narcotics team of Macomb. Very similar to sort of a Comet-type relationship where we have joint interest in county task force. So what was the other thing that we had that we wanted to talk about? Well, we have the police academy tuition for 2 additional cadets that is new, that comes to us by way of a grant. And as Trustee Anderson mentioned, the fire open house was, I think, one of the best open houses in terms of weather. I don't know that we could have gotten any better weather. And just the smiles and the support that the community gave to the fire department was really very, very encouraging. I think we were only kind of restricted by the amount of parking that we had. I think a lot of people we did our best to make sure that people were able to get to the event safely through shuttles and things, but just an incredibly well-attended event, and it was good to see our firefighters get so much love and support. So that was it.
Thank you. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As of September 30th, the Chesterfield Township Clerk's Office did discontinue our passport services. The reason for that, and I've explained that at previous board meetings, but just to reiterate, is just simply the demands for staff and resources that the upcoming 2024 election cycle presents to us. We simply did not have the staffing capacities to continue that service. We will reevaluate that after the 2024 election cycle to see if that's something that we can bring back. But for now, we no longer offer passport services, regrettably. The absentee ballots for the upcoming November 2023 Anchor Bay School millage election, for those who are in the Anchor Bay School District, those absentee ballots have been sent out. Everyone who has requested a ballot has thus far received them, or they are en route to you. We have also had ballots start to come back to us as well. Interestingly enough, we have had quite a high turnout even so far for that millage election, higher than is average. We have had over 2,000, I think 2,500, maybe approaching 3,000 now, ballot requests from a registered voter pool of about 12,000. So that's considerably higher than is typical for a special school millage election. So we will keep the board updated as to the ongoing developments. That election should be administered the same way as it always has been. For those who are in the Anchor Bay School District who will be voting on that issue, there are no changes that are being made. Everything is as it has been. All of the changes that we anticipate will occur for the February 2024 presidential primary, and we will keep everyone posted on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Berry. Item number 7. Public comments on the agenda items only. There is a 3-minute time limit.
Joe Kadich, I live on Sutton. I'm still going to go back to the presentation on the source. First thing's coming out is that you seem to be catering and letting Candace Miller off the hook for her responsibility in these drains, the storm drains. I don't know what's going on there, but you're throwing us under the bus again, just like when you took the Northwest Sewer off of her hands with $11 million in repair needed. I don't know what's going on or why you're doing it, but you should stand up for the people of this township. Now, getting back to what's Sutton and the drain, all the homes on Sutton may have been, some of them built older, but the road was rebuilt. We paid for the road back in about 25 years ago. It was raised to the level required. The ditches were widened and deepened. So don't say anything about this, the drains on Sutton not being taken care of. And it was her responsibility, or the road commissioner's responsibility, to keep them open. The only problem we ran into was when the water came down Sutton toward Jefferson, the drain that is an easement going out to the river was broken 3 years ago. Our trucks did it. And nobody did anything since then. So it had no place to go other than to go down to the Salt River. And the Salt River was bad because the damn pump station for the storm surge failed. The demink station was inoperable, and it wasn't operating till the next day. I don't know what happened to our sanitary sewer systems, but I had water in my basement until the next day, about noon. And I had to tell your guys about it, because they were riding around trucks, and I kept telling them, I says, there's still water not going through that drain system, or the storm system. There was a lot of mistakes made on both sides here, and you start better owning up to them. Not coming out and clouding things over and saying whose responsibility it is over. You ought to look at saying what happened, what I'm going to do about it, and where we're going with this. Right now, I just finished my basement. It's not completely done, but I had a $25,000 rider on my insurance policy. I went over that. I got $24,000 out of it because I had a $1,000 deductible, and my basic costs are now about $32,700. And you'll be seeing my bill. I'll give it to you or to your water department. You can give it to your insurance company. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments?
Paul LaFata. In the consent agenda, the approval of the September 26 minutes does not reflect the removal of the $20,000 emergency expenditure. There was no discussion on it, and discussion was denied by our supervisor. Also, in the bill run, there's another $71,000 for Bazinski, the bond agent. In the bond approval, there was earmarked $8 million for the 26-mile sewer project, $4 million for the township renovation, $2 million for the Bay Harbor. There's nothing in there that says that we're going to spend $500,000 with Bazinski and S&P to secure the debt for the residents. When you look at the money for $100,000 for the Macomb County Drain Commission, we get billed monthly for maintenance and operations in 2 separate buckets that equals over $1.5 million every year. And all it says is maintenance and operation general. And what's happening, instead of maintaining and operating to some sort of a maintenance plan, we wait for a failure. And now the township is going to pay the county for what they're responsible for. That's a no-no. Don't waste my tax dollars, please. The 23-mile road, that's another one. Michigan MDOT, go on their site. Michigan, state of Michigan, from the federal and state gasoline tax and from the license plate tax, the state gets 50% of the allocation, the counties gets 35%, and cities and townships only get 15. So why is this at a 50-50 split? And if you go on Michigan MDOT, that what they define 23 in Gratiot as a main artery, it's not in a city or township subdivision where there would be a match. So why are we giving away $1 million that we don't have in the general fund? This is another ludicrous thing. We're letting the county dictate to us what's happening, and it's their responsibility. The purchasing policy is another no. What you're doing is you're taking away all the checks and balances. You might as well throw the BS&A software that you purchased for $350,000 and the $10,000 annual fees for different, you might as well throw it in the trash can, because that gives you real information of your expenditures and it tracks it to your budgets. So you're throwing that all away, and what you're going to do is you're going to give sole approval to our supervisor, and you're not going to have any checks and balances. There'll be no real-time information to understand what you're spending. It's another no. It's dumb.
Thank you, sir.
We're moving the township into a dictatorship.
Thank you. Time's up. Thank you.
Christopher Perrick, 33862 Embassy. Full agenda today, 15 items. 11 of those items are asking for a massive amount of monies. I'm going to touch on a couple of them that I think are pretty out there. So item J, it's for, I'll call it the guard shack at Brandenburg Park. It shows that we want to approve $70,000 or roughly that for a guard shack. If you dig deep into the agenda, they also want another $25,000 for gates. That's not even shown on the preview there. So I hope there's some explanation for that when that one's presented. The one that really caught me was item F, and that's the $921,000 for the reconstruction of Gratiot 23-mile road between Gratiot and the tracks. That was just recently done. I don't know why it needs to be reconstructed again, and I don't know why we would be on the hook for that. The worst part of that whole area there is the tracks, and I don't even know if that's going to be part of this reconstruction. So hopefully some of those questions will be answered when this is presented. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rand Hewitt. I live at 33688 Roselawn, and I'm also here about the flood that happened in my basement. I have a fully finished ranch in the basement. It's about $25,000 worth of damage. My insurance company only covered 10. As the political football is going to get passed between counties and townships and whoever else, it's going to take a long time. It's complicated. I can understand that. What I want to know from somebody, not tonight, but I'll be glad to contact whoever. What can I do as a little guy to protect my home? Again, I don't ever want it to happen because I had to rip out my carpeting. I was fortunate enough to be able to witness it while it was happening, and I sucked out 22 5-gallon buckets of water and put it down my sub pump drain so I didn't sustain the damage that I could have, like some of my neighbors. Can I get a backflow preventer put out near the street somewhere where I don't have to deal with the sewer coming up You know, I have capped off the sewer that's in my basement, but I'm worried now it's gonna, you know, back up because of pressure or whatever to my toilets in my upper levels. So I'd just like to hear somebody come up with a little solution for the average little guy. You know, what can we do to help? You know, I know they asked me to make a report, and somebody was supposed to come by my house, and they were only here for 2 days, I think it was, and nobody ever came by my house. I never heard anymore, but somebody told me that, okay, your claim's been filed. And I don't know if it was FEMA or who, but, you know, again, lack of information. We don't know what's going on. Thank you much.
Thank you, sir.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. I would like to thank Janice Young for putting the agenda out, and when you break it down, it's about 10.5 seconds per regular agenda item that the residents are going to be able to speak, thanks to King Kersten and his 4 minions that follow him and rubber stamp everything. But in regards to, I'm glad to see Mr. Demink here too tonight, because I seen the full agenda, so I knew he had his 4th vote here tonight. In regards to the agenda, I'm a complete no on changing the APO. I was a no when it was first put on the agenda, and I mean, it's been proven that we can't trust you guys with $5,000, not alone, you know, giving you and department heads, you know, the opportunity to spend $25,000 of our tax money, which is complete with no checks and balances. I mean, that's complete insanity. And to give the supervisor oversight on that, absolutely not. He can't handle what he has now, not alone giving him the opportunity to oversee, you know, purchases of $25,000. He can't be trusted. So, and that's the bottom line. It's been proven time, and it's just not him. I mean, you know, Kathy Elliott, you know, Kathy Vosberg and Brian Demink. I mean, it's just, there's no oversight, and that would be a no. I mean, this is our money. So the other issue that I have with is the $100,000, you know, to pay the county on the cleanup of the drain. I mean, the county came out where I live 2 days after the incident and started cleaning the drains out after we had the flooding at 23 Mile Road, after we had the flooding at 24 Mile Road. They cleaned out. We already pay money, to, like Mr. LaFata said, to the county. So that would be, you know, a no, and we need somebody sitting in that seat that has the spine to tell the county, listen, I'm not going to do everything that you want me to do. And right now we don't have that. And then in regards to the prefabricated galvanized steel building for Brandenburg, we've got more important things that need to be done and addressed in this township than that. So again, stop wasting our tax dollars. Let's focus in on what the residents really need and want in this township. And let's, you know, you've got an election coming up next year. So I figured at some point something would click in that you might start trying to do the right thing at some point. So, but I mean, that hasn't happened. So, but thank you.
Mike Martin, 50393 Bauer. I'm happy to see the township has done some outreach or some continuous education in the citizenry for township stormwater, and that was really important to understand more of the flooding. I'd like to see that like be a continuous thing for the next several months, because it's there's a lot of people like the gentleman. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, sir. That you spoke, and you know he didn't have the information beforehand, and now he's getting it. So I think that having that outreach continuously is good. On the agenda, though, if I'm reading the APO change correctly, I counted 6 items on tonight's agenda that would not be on this agenda if the APO changes go through, because they would not need board recognition under that threshold of the change in the value amounts. And, I mean, there's a lot of spending on just this agenda tonight. I mean, it was 15 items on here. That's, and you're talking about like 40% of it would be absent in a future meeting should the same exact thing happened. And aside from that, a lot of these expenses are very questionable. I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be a change in something like the furnace and air conditioning at the schoolhouse, but I don't understand if there's enough like realized usage for, what was that, $8,700 to go into something when there are much higher priorities in this township to be spending every single dollar that we have. I don't think that we're so flushed with cash that we can, spend 4 or 5 figures on every little tidbit, then have so many other important priorities go to waste. And added to that, I see this situation, this galvanized steel building, almost a cost of $70,000. I can put that value at almost the starting pay and benefits for a new full-time firefighter, something the township does need. And of course, that would only be for 1-year cost, but that would be a much greater investment for the community than replacing a toll booth that I don't believe anybody had any any desire in this community. I don't think replacing a toll booth at Brandenburg was a high priority for anyone in this township. And when you take that into consideration, not to mention the other costs going into the park or into some of these other things listed here, it really does feel there's a great disconnect between what the township residents want or need versus what is being prioritized in this agenda. And if all of it gets approved, then we're looking at exorbitant costs. And what is the overall benefit to the residents, especially when their needs are actually not being met? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, the consent agenda. Clerk Perry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of September 26th, 2023. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Support.
Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Perry.
Trustee Demink. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9, public hearings. There are no public hearings scheduled tonight. Regular agenda item number 10, item 10A. Clerk Berry, when you're ready.
Item 10A is postponed from the September 12th, 2023 agenda. A recommendation to approve the changes to APO 11-2019 purchasing policy effective date October 18th, 2023.
Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve? Seeing no motion to approve, the item fails. Item 10B.
Item 10B is to approve a request for Chesterfield Township to partner with the Macomb County Drain Commission to match $100,000 for a drain cleaning project in Chesterfield Township.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there Treasurer Clerk Perry? Mitch, do you want to address this, or? I'll lead into it. So this is a result of meetings with the Drain Commissioner's Office, Candace Miller. We met in detail with them. We also provided our overview of the areas of concern that were reported damage related to the floods. There were several areas that, in the districts, as you saw on the previous map, that needed to be addressed. On this request in the package that came out from Mr. Accavetti from the Drain Commission, you can see some of the priority areas that he would like to address. Mitch, am I missing anything? You want to fill in?
Yeah, we met with the drain office on September 27th to talk about the, what can be done to avoid any future issues with the county drains. In the last couple of years, we have contributed $25,000. They would match it to clean drains. As a result of this meeting and that rain event, it was suggested we increase to $100,000, the township share. And again, I had heard today that the county is willing to contribute $150,000, so that would be $250,000 to cleaning drains. In the county, because they are their drains, they would prioritize and select where these cleanouts would take place. They would let us know, but they would select the locations with our input.
And just to follow up, one of the speakers addressed that it was already, there were areas of the township. We've been very aggressive on this drain cleanout the last couple of years, and we've partnered with them. This is just a much larger scale based on the rain event, and attempting to be much more aggressive to help the residents in certain areas where some of the drains definitely need attention quickly. With that, I'll take questions from the board, or Mitch. Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, my question is just real simple. What part of this have the Chesterfield Township taxpayers not already paid? What part of this is their responsibility?
Yeah, and again, because after you mentioned that earlier, when I live in a township, not Chesterfield, and I was thinking about my tax bill, and you're right, a lot of it goes to the county, but I think that's for school. MISD takes a big chunk. Riley, Chippewa Valley.
They do, but I think we're about 4 mils to the county.
Right, but I don't
Right?
think that's for, I know it's not for roads, and I don't think it's for drain cleanouts. We do pay a monthly bill to the county drain office, but that's for sanitary sewer
Sure.
operation and maintenance. It's not for these county drains. And I wish because I would have brought my tax, because I'm always interested where my money's going too. I
Sure.
have similar concerns. But my memory's not that good, and I don't recall seeing my tax money going to clean county drains. I don't recall seeing a specific tax item to do that.
No, I think, again, and I'm looking to you for answers. I understood the distinction between the sanitary, this is not, part of the MID or part of the, the Township Enterprise Fund. It has nothing to do with what, aside from it both being water, like it has nothing to do with the water bill. But in terms of county services, county-owned property, in the same way that Trustee Vosberg, you and I spoke immediately after the floods, and we were pretty aware right away that a number of subdivisions, their problems were exacerbated because their detention ponds had never really been maintained. And I think the first phone call that I made, Trustee Demink, and then we talked with Mr. Accavetti. And this is an area that he knows, I was fairly impressed with just being able to talk about a street, and he could recall off the top of his head what drain, where that was supposed to be going. So he's very detailed in that area, and the packet that we have, I just can't figure out if we can say to our residents in a subdivision that you're obligated to maintain your property to get water off of your property, and then when it gets into the county drain, why we don't say to the county, why aren't you maintaining your property? We'll have no problem saying it to our residents, and we said that to our residents in some instances when they had to deal with the impact of the flood, when they were putting their trash out to the curb and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't being picked up. And they said, well, your GFL count doesn't cover, this is household trash. You're going to have to get a private, we had no problem telling our residents what their responsibilities are. But I really, as a gatekeeper to the township, taxpayers, I have no problem if this is a township, problem, and this is something that we have to do to maintain our township. But if this is a county, what part of this, and I look for anybody on the board, I don't know, Trustee Vosberg, you have some experience in this area. I don't know what we say to our residents about their tax money going to county property, and the only thing that I can say to them is, if we don't, you could get to the gentleman that spoke about his insurance, and to Mr. Kadich, who said he's got $25,000 rider and he's over that by about $7,000. So do I say to you, hey, the extra $50 a year that this is going to cost you is money well spent, even though it's not really yours? I mean, what do we say to the residents who are taxed for county services and they don't get them? They got to supplement it again, and they have a 50, well, this would be almost like a 60-40 split now if they bump it up to 250, and we're, what is it? What do we say to them? Is this their responsibility?
I think you just described it. This is, unless we partner with them and do this, it's not going to get done to the scale that it needs to be done. That's the simple answer.
Do we have anybody that advocates for us?
Sure do.
I know that you have a lot of meetings, and I see
Sure
like a
do.
lot of ribbon cuttings and a lot of endorsements and all
Stop.
of that.
Let's
Do you
just
use
deal
those
with it.
relationships to advocate for us?
Sure do.
You do?
Stop personalizing this and let's fix the
I
problem
just don't know
here
who's
in the
advocating
township.
for the residents.
I
That's
am.
you
I
are.
am.
Well, you're not doing a good job.
Everybody up here is.
You're not doing a very good job.
Good. I don't expect you to vote for me. The problem is we have an issue in the township that needs to be fixed. The drain commissioner is willing to partner with us, and yes, we're going to use general fund money to make sure that we do everything that this doesn't happen again. And yes, it's taxpayer residents' money. Now you can present this however you want and twist it. We're trying to solve a problem where this poor gentleman, these other poor residents, didn't have to deal with this.
I don't need to lecture.
I'm not
You have other
lecturing
board
you.
members. You're
Quit
talking about
politicizing this
spin.
and personalizing
You're talking
it.
about spin as you spin.
You spin. Oh my
Okay.
God, do you spin. Any further
Don't
questions
vote
from
for
the
me,
board?
but just answer my question. Is it county property or is it township
I
property?
did, and you don't like the answer. You're just going to keep talking.
Okay.
Clerk Berry. Trustee Vosberg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I support this because even though technically we don't have to do anything, it's really technically the responsibility of the county drain office to do all of this. But they have limited resources, especially now dealing with the onslaught of all the water that we had. Because individual everybody's water eventually drains into these drains that we're going to approve helping to pay for tonight. So even though some subdivisions have their own maintenance thing, all these other things we talked about that we heard about before, this is something that will benefit many of our residents, more than just the ones who live on that waterway. It will help all of us. So for that reason, I support this. And as far as I know, the item for Macomb County government that we pay on our taxes, that just goes for their, like the courts, the health department, the sheriff's department, those kind of things, your salary, things like that. For the general county thing, it doesn't include the money for this. And as we heard before, technically, the drain commission office could assess people who live on these drains, assess them for that work. And I'm thinking that would be an awful burden as well, because how can I only want to pay for the water that goes by, that I contribute to that drain. It comes from all over. So I'm willing to, for now, pay this. I think we need to have, sounds like they're working on longer range plans, and we need to continue doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Berry.
Thank you. Mitch, I see here that the contractors that are going to be used for this project, there's an excavating company, as well as the Macomb County Public Works Office Drain Maintenance Team. So none of our people are going to be participating in this, or none of our employees, correct?
Correct. The county would bid the project, oversee the work. We would, yeah, we're not doing the work.
Okay, so I also, to extend from that, is that the method in which is used, the methods that are used to address these issues, the township has no say over that. And in particular, I noticed on a lot of these drains, a lot of the problem is vegetation, and they're going to be cleaning out vegetation. So whether they choose to clear that vegetation out mechanically, or whether they choose to clear that vegetation out with the use of chemical additives or something on that method, some sort of method as that, the township has no, I know some of our residents are concerned about that. They've been concerned about us using some of those methods here, but in this case, when we authorize this, we won't have any control over the methods used, correct?
They will be mechanically removed. There will be an excavator out there, or a ditching bucket, removing vegetation, shopping carts, car bump, there's a lot of stuff in these drains. And it will all be mechanically removed.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay.
Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. Again, I'm looking at, the residents are billed by Macomb County Drain Commission for operation and maintenance services. This is kind of reminds me the horse escaped out of the barn, and now we're going to do something about it. That the township has to come up with the money. I don't know. I don't want to go back to the North Interceptor, or shall I say the Chesterfield Interceptor, formerly known as the North Interceptor, and a great deal we had there. I think we have to be more aggressive with the county, or more realistic, like the former trustees or former treasurer said. Our residents spend about $500,000 a year goes to the county, and now in order to protect your property, on top of that, you got to pay the county a large segment to get it clean. I don't support it, and I'll just end it right there.
Thank you. Any further, Trustee Domingue?
It's a lot of money to spend, but when you look at all the photographs in these drains, I'm familiar with quite a few of them, they need to be cleaned out. It's notice and doubts after that rain. All you had to do is look at the Salt River. Salt River went up almost to the height it was during high water. You can look at the bridge marks right at Jefferson. It's a lot of money, but we got to get it done. And it's the only way this water is going to flow from the retention ponds through the ditches to the county drains. So I do support this.
Thank you. Treasurer Elliott?
It's my understanding that no property taxes, county property taxes, go to drain maintenance, and I will definitely call and check on that first thing tomorrow morning. We have been participating, as Mitch explained, we've been participating in a match program of about $25,000 a year, and that has just not been enough to maintain. These detention ponds and a lot of these drains have been developed. They have not been maintained, and there's no way to maintain it. This is if you have, if you think of phragmites like you do in dandelions, and you think of a dandelion and you just let it grow and you never treat it, you never take care of it, it's hard to get on top of those, and it's going to take an entire neighborhood and all of us to work together. This is just a small piece of what we have to do as a bigger program, a stormwater management or maintenance program, and stay on top of it and educate people, explain to them, a lot of people have phragmites growing in their ditches, and they like those there because that blocks the noise or blocks dust from the road. But the reality is that when rains come, the phragmites are filling the ditches, and the rain doesn't have any place to go. And so these drains are filled with, as Mitch has said, a lot of different things. So I want the residents to know that, yes, we understand that this is a lot of money, but it's going to take some money to do some catch up and get this stuff taken care of. And but this is just a drop in the bucket of the kinds of things that we have to do, educating our neighbors on how to clean up the phragmites or clean up the ditches and different things as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Trustee Joseph again.
Yeah, I'm interested in your phone call, Treasurer Elliott, because I don't know. I don't know the answer, and I really don't know. It strikes me as odd. I've worked in municipal work my entire career, and this is a very detailed report, and I can't imagine that the county would be willing to offer up $150,000 on something that isn't their problem. It wouldn't make any sense. So the guy that generated this report did it for free, because there's no money that goes to, if I understood the position right. And I don't want to split hairs, Trustee Vosberg or Trustee Demink. I don't support this. I don't support it. I don't think that county, if indeed it is, county property is not, there's not taxes allocated to the maintenance of county property. I would find that to be, I don't know who paid for the person to generate the report. Why wouldn't they simply say that has nothing to do with us? We don't, that's in Chesterfield. That's a Chesterfield problem, because geographically that's in the township of Chesterfield. So clearly there's some ownership, and I was under the impression that we, well, any property, whether it be privately owned, state-owned, county-owned, we can't go on to private property or property that is owned by another entity and maintain it however we like. So even the question that Clerk Berry asked or answered about chemical agents being used to control, we wouldn't have a say on that, because it's not township property. We're not able to go into a car wash that's been abandoned and residents pooled their resources. It's privately owned. What gives the county, where do they get their revenue? And that is a call that, you know, I'll be making calls to. I'm just simply reach out to Mr. Accavetti and ask him, like, what fund of money does the county use, and has that already been extracted from the taxpayer, and why are they being charged twice, if not? And if the answer is well, they're not being taxed for this, and it is a problem that impacts, and I have a better understanding of this, but I was always operating from the assumption that this was county-owned, problem and all, and if there's a match, because they're not, I guess we'll get that answer. But I don't support it. I just feel like I have to vote yes, because I think the argument that was laid out is exactly right. This is just going to continue to back up in people's basements. So I don't know that you're obligated to pay it, but I think if we shared it across the board, that we would be in a better position if we do nothing. And at this point, I don't think we have a choice. Again, the advocacy for the resident is tough to discern when the guy at the top is more interested in an endorsement than he is in advocating for the people that put him there. That's just an opinion, and it's not a spin. It just is fact. It's clear that we need to have somebody advocating for the resident and not, okay. I'm against this, Mitch, but I don't think we got a choice. And we'll investigate further and understand how the property that is owned by the county is maintained by the township residents of Chesterfield.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the board? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Clerk Berry, to approve the request. Item 10B. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 10C.
Item 10C is a recommendation by the Parks and Recreation Department to approve the official Chesterfield Township trick-or-treat hours from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st, 2023.
Trustee
Support.
Demink, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Questions from the board? No questions. Trustee Demink, you got a question? No questions from the board. I have a motion by Demink, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
All right,
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10D, when you're ready.
Item 10D, KMP Realty LLC et al. Versus Chesterfield Township, Charter Township of Chesterfield, Macomb County Circuit Court Docket Number 2022-000374-AW, to consider approval of a proposed First Amendment to the consent judgment entered on June 1st, 2022.
Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve, if you don't mind. Clerk Berry, support.
Second.
Mr. DeMaster, I don't know,
Here for any questions.
counsel, do you want to address what this is real quick? This was a result of a consent agreement from some time ago.
And it was, and at this time, the plaintiff is asking for 4 separate amendments to that consent judgment, and it is solely within the discretion of this board whether or not to agree to that. You do not have to, but you certainly may. The amendments are minor in nature. It's providing for minimum square footage of 2-story residential homes at 2,500 square feet, 1-story at 2,000 square feet. The front elevations of each home will be required to be brick veneer or stone up to the height of the first floor. All fences must be in the rear yard, and each home must have a side entry garage. Those are the only alterations.
Actually, the alterations are just for the brick front and for the fences, because the other ones were already part of the consent judgment previously. These are just 2 amendments. They're just, say, the brick front was supposed to be on the first one, it got missed, so they're correcting that, and the second one is for just a little bit of privacy fence within the buildable window, and not to go all the way to the river.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Trustee Vosberg.
That was going to be my question. How does this change from the original? So what, if I'm understanding the explanation, 2 of them had already been agreed to by the
All of them have been
All of
agreed
them
to,
had
except for the 2 new ones amending, which is the brick front and a little bit of privacy fence.
And that's what we're asking? How did
Yep.
that come about?
Again, the brick front was missed originally. It was supposed to be on the document. It was agreed to, but it got missed. And the second thing is, the restrictions on the fencing were decorative, non-obscuring only, which didn't allow for any privacy fence. So this is just mutually agreed upon to give them 50-foot of privacy fence, but not all privacy fence.
Okay.
So just to give the new homeowners or the new people who are going to buy these a little bit more option.
So because I remember when one of the times it came to us, the size of the homes was an issue, but that hasn't changed. That's the same as...
That is not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Clerk Berry, to approve item 10D. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
all right,
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 9E.
Item 9E is to approve a recommendation from engineering to authorize Spalding DeDecker to proceed with the 2024 sidewalk replacement program evaluations and contractor bidding for future board evaluation.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Trustee Vosberg, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Mitch, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This request is for year 4, zone 4. Typically, we evaluate, then we prepare bid documents, we notify the property owners, give them a chance to repair, and then otherwise, the township contractor makes the repairs and the property owners are assessed.
And this is similar to the previous.
It's the same format as the last 2 for sure.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Vosberg.
Just a clarification, the agenda narrative says replacement, but the actual backup materials for replacement. I'm sorry. This is for replacement, not
You,
Now, oh, okay, the gap. I'm
Yeah.
confusing my.
This is
terms.
the sidewalk,
It's for
yeah.
the sidewalk. So this is existing sidewalks that need some repair work.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Further comments from the board?
Yes.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, Mitch, Spalding to Decker, as part of the agreement in years past, they collect a 25% administrative fee on every slab that's poured. And the portion of that is to ensure that the contractor poured slabs, or I guess there's, if the homeowner decides, they still would incur an administrative fee because there are costs associated with just marking the cement?
If the township, I'm sorry, if the property owner repairs it on their own, then the township inspects it, and it's there is no 25%. If David Joseph chose to repair
Yeah.
his sidewalks, you would repair them, we would inspect them and not charge a fee for it. Spalding would be out of that arrangement.
There's no fee assessed, because Spalding would be the original company that marks which slabs. I was under the impression that they were compensated, so you're saying there's not?
Spalding's fee is 25% of the construction, the ultimate construction amount. So
Sure.
Roughly 10% of their fee is to prepare the bid documents. And for simple math, if the contract amount is $100,000, roughly 10% of their fee is for the design, preparing the bid documents. There's another 3 to 5% for administrating the assessments and doing the mailings, and then the remainder is for contract administration, inspection, and contract administration. If every homeowner, you know what, you actually are right. If the contract, if it's bid $100,000, they would get roughly 10% for preparing those bid documents, $10,000. They
So-
wouldn't get the inspection fees if the homeowner chose to do it themselves. The township would inspect it, so they wouldn't get the full 25%.
You know, my question wasn't down that path, but I would appreciate it maybe if you just check that out, because I was
Yeah.
under the impression that there was a flat fee charged per slab, and that the homeowner, even if they did the repair themselves, would be assessed the 25% because there were costs associated, at least that was my understanding from previous discussions, that Spalding to Decker incurred costs identifying that as a slab to be replaced. So if you're saying that it's a percentage of the administrative,
The total fee is 25%.
Yeah.
About 10% is preparing the bid documents.
So you're saying that the administrative, I'll
Inspection.
come back to that one and
Yeah, okay.
catch you, because it's not critical at this
yeah.
point, but I appreciate you dissecting that, because I think that's fair. But we'll come back to that one. The question that I had for you was, part of the 25% ensures that the contractor completed the job satisfactorily. Like, so in years past, there was like maybe some damage to lawns or property. I will say that it seemed much more surgical this year, you know, so the bust-out procedure was a little bit more refined, and you didn't have the amount of damage to lawns and things that we got. But the one question that I had for you was a question that came up because they were actually pouring cement right in the middle of the flood, you know, and my sidewalk, I had a few slabs that were prepped, and they formed it, they put like a base down, you know, and they tamped it all down, and then we got the rain, my whole front yard was underwater, and it dissipated everywhere except the formed area, you know, because that was fairly watertight and encased. And I came home and they just filled it, you know, they just poured the slab. And I know we had a resident in my neighborhood that reached out to you. She contacted me again today, and I was wondering if you could follow up on the pours that they did during the flood, and the, you know, the base was kind of washed out. Are those residents, do they have any recourse if that pad fails? Because it's usually with the money is withheld to the contractor until all of the things are resolved. But what do we have in the way of, you know, any kind of assurances that that slab is sound?
Yeah, and well, you really don't know until it cracks or fails. That's the short answer. Because we did bring that up with the Spalding to Decker and with the contractor.
Yeah.
They were dragging a pump around with them and dewatering those before they poured. And I've had correspondence with Ms. Rumble. we keep the contract open till next spring, mainly to make sure the sprinklers all work, the side comes in. So this contractor will be under contract till next spring, and we retain 5 to 10%. And if we go back and if your sidewalk is cracked or has failed, then it's cracked or it's failed, it wasn't poured properly, then they would be responsible to replace that.
Okay, I'm making a note on that one.
Yeah, write that down.
Thank you.
Further questions? I have a motion by trustee Vosberg, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 10E. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9F.
Item 9F is to consider the cost share agreement between Chesterfield Township and Macomb County for the reconstruction of 23 Mile Road from the Canadian National Railroad crossing to M3 Gratiot Avenue. This agreement is a 50-50 split between the township and Macomb County in the amount of $921,283.
Motion to approve. Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there support? Is there any support? Motion dies. Item 10G.
Item 10G is to approve a recommendation to remove and replace the downflow furnace and air conditioning system at the Historical Village Weller Schoolhouse by Sylvan Inc. in an amount not to exceed $8,703.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Trustee Vosberg,
Second.
Clerk Berry. Mr. Sonneberg.
Good evening. Karen, can you pull up that slide for us, please? Thank you. I just want to go over some details that you can see. The pictured building, that's our schoolhouse in our historic village. Last year, we identified that the AC unit was having some problems. It's past its useful life. It failed. We got a price to do some repairs. The short version is the repairs were about $4,100 to replace the AC. Well, the problem with that is this is a downdraft unit, so the AC coil sits underneath the furnace. You basically have to tear apart the furnace, pull off the top of the furnace, put the coil down. It's a lot of work. The furnace, we looked at the furnace is operational. It's about 20 years old, so it's coming to the end of its useful life. So we identified a couple other things we could do to improve that, and the idea was instead of just going in and fixing the AC, we would upgrade the whole system. It would become as one, same remaining useful life. Replace all the components and make some improvements. So what you see in front of you is a total replacement of the existing furnace and the AC unit that you can see pictured to the right in our schoolhouse building that you see pictured to the left. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Trustee Anderson.
I support the Historical Society. I'm a lifetime member, a liaison from the board to the Historical Society. Question I have is there is some fundraising done by the Historical Society, and I just wonder why it becomes the township's liability. And I know you've helped out and appreciate it. Why it becomes a township expense to absorb the entire cost when some of that could be deferred to the society itself in replacing that. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Further questions?
Yes.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, just as an kind of an add-on to Trustee Anderson's, we had a problem with the schoolhouse, the historic village floor in the log cabin, and that was pitched as a safety concern, and we even got feedback from the township attorney who basically said if you have a building on township property, somebody gets hurt, you're going to be liable. And so the question became, well, where does the money come from? And we started a conversation about, just in general, the historic village. So we've taken, we have the chapel and the log cabin and the schoolhouse, and these are, historical in nature. So you have some that are, you know, the air conditioner's 20 years old and past its prime, but what about the building itself? You know, so there's a question of what is the state of each one of these buildings, and in terms of appearing on the budget in an annual basis for maintenance on these, why are we still not incorporating that in our, you know, sort of general fund and budget planning? Because it seems like we're incurring some serious liabilities over in the historic village. I don't know what any of the other buildings are in need of, and like what is the, do we just take this out of the general fund? Is this not part of our leisure services budget or our parks and rec budget? Like what are we doing with the historic village on a bigger scale? Because these are never, the last several are not budgeted. I remember the bell tower was paid through donations, and so what do we repair on a donation basis? What do we repair on a township? And when will the historic village start to appear in our budget on an annual basis for maintenance and building repairs?
I can answer that. My first year here, I did add the historical village in our budget, but when we went to presentation, it was removed. And that began the debate of the flooring and who's liable and who's responsible for it. So we can add it back in. This is a general fund expense, as there is no historical village line item. And again, I'll fall back to, this is on township property. This is basically deemed a township building. It's insured by the township. It's occupied by the township. I'm unaware of any historical funds that have ever been offered. I'll defer that to Trustee Vosberg, but yes, this is a general fund expense. Trustee Vosberg?
Right, and it was, according to the backup information, it was a budgeted amount, so it's not, the amount was, our funds budgeted, it says yes. It's been, Historical Society raises money for programming and special events, not so much for the maintenance of the buildings themselves. There was some money that was raised for the chapel, and it was specifically designated for the chapel, and I think there's about $4,000, and Josh's department is aware of that. If they need to do something at the chapel, there's about $4,000 available.
I'll clarify my statement too. This is in the capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, it's
It
in
is
the
in-
budget or it's not in the budget?
It is in the capital improvement plan, but just because it's in the capital improvement plan, it has to be brought to the board for approvals. And
Thank
yes, it doesn't change it. It's a general fund expense. Did I miss anything, Josh?
No, sir.
All right. Any further questions? Seeing no further questions, I have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Clerk Barry, to approve item 10G.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10H.
Item 10H is to approve a recommendation to perform a facilities conditions assessment by Partners in Architecture, PLC, on property located at 48400 Sugarbush Road, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $12,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Clerk Barry. Josh, if you
So-
want to begin?
I'm going to read through the executive summary, which has a lot of the details about the project, and then I'll take any questions after. Chesterfield Township is in the second year of a 3-year lease with Anchor Bay Schools, Sugarbush Elementary Building. The township is entering a long-term lease options for the building, including negotiations to purchase, but would first like to complete a facilities condition assessment to help identify the current facility deficiencies. Although approximately half of the building is leased, the assessment will be conducted throughout the 65,000 square foot building. The evaluation will be performed by architects and engineers focusing on on-site parking areas, walkways, accessible routes, play areas, the exterior envelope, including the walls, doors, windows, roof, interior conditions, walls, doors, windows, ceiling, flooring, restroom, common area, mechanical systems, and electrical systems. The final report will outline a description of the issues identified along with the priority level to replace or remedy along with estimated cost. Quotes were obtained from 2 firms, AEW for the amount of $18,100 and Partners in Architect for $11,500. But we have a do not to exceed amount of $12,000. We added an additional $500 to their proposal. So we're asking to move forward with this assessment for the request of $12,000.
Just to follow up on my previous comments, we've met with them. We have a purchase agreement, I want to say a handshake deal with them, for lack of a better term. We are waiting for their purchase, the school district, to forward us their purchase document. Attorney Siebert has been involved in this. We're just waiting for that purchase document to be presented in its entirety. And this is basically a due diligence period prior to presenting that document here. Any questions from the board? Seeing no questions from the board, I have a motion by Trustee DeMink, supported by Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10I.
Item 10I is to approve a recommendation to award contract to JSAF Contracting, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $35,640 to install new roof, trim, and gutters at the Chesterfield Township Youth Center.
Is there a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there support?
I'll support.
Trustee Vosberg. Josh, you want to cover this?
Sure. So we've been going back and forth about this building. We own it. We're stuck with maintaining it. Right now, we're using it to house records. We moved a lot of the township records into the building as we go through the process of getting them scanned. But since we own this building, we did an evaluation of it, and we've known this for a while, and we basically held out, and we had in our budget this year to replace the roof. So we went out for RFP. We had 6 bidders that came in, and they're going to replace the roof, sections of gutters, not the whole entire building. We don't need gutters in just the whole building. Any plywood and fascia that needs to be replaced is all included in this package.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Questions from the board? Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I supported it because I want to have a discussion on this. I think the only thing we use the building for right now is storage of records, is that?
Correct. Sorry.
Are there other options for storing records that, or other options that we're going to, in the future, look at for using the building in some other way? I mean, I understand we have to protect the records that are in there, but if we're not going to continue using the building, I'm wondering if we can spend the money, we'll have to spend the money, but spend it on storing the records somewhere or putting them in digital format so we don't have to keep hard copies. And that's not the agenda item itself, but I would like to, that's something we need to look at for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Seems in the last year or so, we're maybe a little longer than that, we're looking at mothballing that building and getting rid of it. We got the right location, and now we're dumping $35,000 into it, and I'll save the discussion on the Sugar Bush Elementary Community Center to a later time, but there's room over there. I would hope that that little building down at the end of Sugar Bush, that perhaps you could put the records in the building we're renting from Chester or Anchor Bay School District for about $140,000 a year, $150,000 a year. versus dumping this amount into a building that's kind of at a dead end. I don't know who's gonna watch it, people going through Sugar Bush Inn or what. It just seems like a, not really a necessary expenditure. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused on this, like, in terms of storage capacity, that was the only use that I heard that was, you know, like a needed space, storage. It's a lot of money for storage, and as Trustee Anderson said, we haven't had any youth center programming over there in years. Even the summer camps pulled out of there, you know, it just really wasn't usable space, and it wasn't, I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand why we're coming forward to put a $40,000 roof on a building that hasn't been used in years, and the only thing we do is put documents in it. We store things in there. What about just like evaluating these expenditures on how they enhance the residents' quality of life? You know, like if it doesn't bring anything to the table, we don't spend the money. You know, like what's the genesis of this, and why are we even contemplating it? Because it makes no sense to me. There's no problem solving that goes on. So we have a building full of documents, and we either can we use Laserfiche? Can we, you know, scan them and digital copies? Can we bring them somewhere else where it doesn't rain on the inside, or do we just put a new roof on a building that's obsolete and hasn't been used in the township in years? I don't understand why it's even on the agenda. I really don't. But
Clerk Baird?
Thank you, Supervisor Kersten. I'd like to address this issue because as the records custodian for the township, and since this is the use it's being, what's being utilized for, I can say for myself, from an operational perspective, it would be my preference to have those records in another location, perhaps in the new community center, where we will be doing all of our elections operations. It would be helpful, then I can use staff to do both things at once, or at least make it easier to do that. So, or, as has been suggested, take the $35,000 and allocate that toward a scanning project where we could scan some of those records and receive kind of a two-for benefit there, and that is, one, we get to eliminate some of the records physical requirements, but also have them in a centralized electronic management system where they're more easily accessible. So although I do appreciate very much the having that facility available for our records at this time, I do feel that we could problem solve this and come up with some other options for the use of those funds from not being the records custodian. Just as a board member, installing a new roof, which is, you know, supposed to last probably 10 to 20 years, onto a building that I don't think we're going to have that long anyway. I think there's some better use of those funds, and would like to see us maybe do something else with that building in terms of maybe getting it out of our inventory, something on that order. But as far as for records management purposes, I believe that we could utilize those funds in another way to receive more benefit long-term. Thank you.
Any further questions? Trustee Domingue.
You and I talked a little bit about this before the meeting, but Josh, let me throw this at you. How many square feet is that youth center?
4,100 approximately.
4,100 square feet.
Give or take, might be 42.
Okay, and how much of that roughly square footage are we using for storage right now?
85%.
85.
So
Just shoot me a rough number. What, like 3,900 square feet of it?
Yeah, there's some storage rooms that we just, you know, we don't have anything in. The problem with that building is you have two options. You either fix the roof or sell the building, because the roof's starting to leak and you're going to cause problems on the inside of the building, and if you don't fix the roof, we should sell the building. That's what it comes down to.
That's my thing, you know, we've had it, we haven't used it. Is there any other that you've talked to the supervisor with, or maybe we could find somewhere else where we can come up with the space where we could store the records or paperwork, whatever we have between, let's say, the new community center or the PD or something like that. I mean, where this could be stored. I mean, I don't know what's gotta be locked up, especially to the clerk. You know, I'll turn that over to you for document retention and security and stuff like that. That's not my, you know, big thing. I mean, the building's old, you know, we've been talking about getting rid of it, you know. I'm really not too keen about spending $35,000 on a roof. You know, you and I talked about it before, Mr. Supervisor, I understand where you're at, but, I mean, maybe table this till we see if we can come up with some more, where we can find some space to store all this stuff. I mean, that would be my thing.
I'll respond to some of the questions. Number one, yes, there is a plan. The records were moved over there because there is a renovation plan for the Township Hall that is pending. Some of these records are vital records. The Laserfish has been in this township for over 12 years. It is limited in use. There is limited user experience with it, and that in itself is problematic. There was a price that a contract vendor was quoted out to go and digitize all of these records, and if I recall correctly, it was over $300,000. The school was not yet it is not yet in the inventory of the township. We don't own it yet, and I think, if I'm following the clerk correctly, she's planning on moving, or has plans to move the entire clerk's office to that building, which occupies several large areas within that building. So storage is going to be a problem. So yes, we did have these discussions. I think in the short term, our experience with selling property in this township has been problematic at best, and I'm not going to make a motion to remove or replace that building. So the building is in our inventory. It is in need of care. It needs a roof to at least maintain cold record storage, and if somebody else I think it's the best plan right now is to put a roof on it, secure the records, and make sure that they don't get destroyed while they're in that building. That's my position. Any further questions? Trustee Anderson.
I just, the old DPW property, there was a $500,000 offer to purchase that property, and this board in its wisdom, majority decided not to accept it. So they may not be the most desirous piece of property up there, but you never know. Just wanted to correct that. Thank you.
I'm correct about the Gratiot property. What about it? Did I miss something?
You may have.
I could have, because it wasn't clear. I wasn't sure what
Yeah,
you were trying to say.
I'll help on that if you like. You got a $500,000 offer which you turned down, and he's saying that probably wasn't real wise, and if I'm interpreting right, that wasn't extremely wise given your argument today being that the township isn't good at selling property. I don't know that that's I think that he was having a little trouble understanding which side of your mouth you were speaking out of. I think that I'm
Making
just,
it personal again.
No, I'm just trying to help you understand because you were a little
I
bit
didn't understand where
condescending.
he's going. I'm not being condescending. I wasn't clear on what his statement
Then I
was.
misinterpreted you.
Mr. Supervisor, can I have a round one, please?
Treasurer Elder.
Thank you. I never got a chance to comment. So I understand that we have a lot of documents and records, and I respect what the situation is as far as staffing and the cost of getting those digitized. But I think for me, I understand that we're in a current situation with this particular building where we're using it for records. However, I think the long-term goal is to get those records in digital digital form. So is there, Clerk Barry, is there a way that maybe I'm not going to support this tonight because I think there is some conversation that obviously needs to be had about, first of all, what the long-term plan is for this building, and second, about what is the long-term plan for our records and getting those digitized. And if maybe Clerk Barry could do something to kind of give us a plan to help get there, would that be realistic? Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Domingue.
If I may, I'd like to make a motion that we table this till we,
Your call. I'm good with it going down if it goes down.
I mean, I'd like to make maybe a motion, we table this to look to see if we can find some other resources from the property we own that we can, for storage, you know, look at, I mean, all of us, the 7 of us, throw our input in, or with Josh and the other people, and to see if we can brainstorm to come up with something, and if not, then I guess we gotta put a roof, but I mean, I'm sort of the same thing, we're gonna get rid of it, I really don't wanna spend 30-some grand, but maybe we can brainstorm something here. It's just my motion, I don't know if I'll get any support.
I have a motion by trustee Demink, supported by trustee Vosberg, to delay this,
To what date?
table it
To what date?
indefinitely.
Table it up for, up to,
Couple years?
let's throw it up for 3 months. See what we can brainstorm, okay? We can bring it back sooner if we want, but we can go up to 3 months.
Okay, which gives us, hang on 1 second. I'm gonna look for it, hang on. For December, January. So that would put us, if we were to maintain the same township calendar of our board meetings, that would put us to January the 9th. That would be 3 months.
You want to do it before the end of 2023 is fine too. I just thought I'd throw something out there. I'll get some better input on it. I'm looking for some help here from anybody. Pardon? Up to. Up to, so we can do up to, yeah, up to.
I have a motion by trustee Demink, supported by trustee Vosberg.
That I'm sorry, the problem is going to be with, I beg your pardon, the problem that's going to be with that is that the motion wouldn't be proper. We either need to postpone indefinitely, which might be what you would like to do, or postpone it to a date certain.
Council, I'm looking at council. What's my best wording on this? I'm just asking for attorney.
You can do it either way. You can postpone it indefinitely till the board's ready to bring it back, or you can postpone it to a date certain, being the end of the year.
Let's just go
or-
indefinitely, then we can bring it back when we want. All right, I'll do it that way.
Motion by trustee Demink, supported by trustee Vosberg, to indefinitely postpone item 10I. Clerk Barry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10J, when you're ready, Clerk Barry.
Item 10J is to approve a recommendation to purchase and install a prefabricated galvanized steel building in the amount not to exceed $69,605.92, with the following features including HVAC mini split, electrical canopy from Parkut International to replace toll booth at Brandenburg Park entrance.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Mr. Sonnenberg, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir, thank you. I'm just going to go over some talking points on this, and I just want to start off by saying I'm well aware that this is an extremely expensive structure, and I'll go over the details why we got to this number. I mean, I'm not numb to the fact that as a resident and an employee here, this is a lot of money to spend in a guard shack. I understand that. But I'm going to tell you how we got there, and we can make a decision. So first, this was installed in 1974. It was the original guard shack. If you'll look, you can't really see, but that picture to the upper right is kind of the inside. I'm going to start there. The problem with this building is the way they built it, there's some original feeds that come up into this structure. So it's not as simple as just tearing it down and making it go away. What I mean by that is our main phone connection comes into that building. There's also a power connection and several other connections. It's almost like a large junction box for some of the systems in the park. So to just tear that down would require additional underground rerouting and rewiring. It's kind of better that the connections are there. It's better to keep the building. We looked at a million options. We started this project, I would say, when I first got here 4 years ago, we started looking at this, and we came up with a bunch of ways to do it. The problem with this structure is what you can't see on the lower right is the roof at one time was leaking so bad, because we need to do better roof maintenance, was leaking so bad that the joist rotted out. So we went in last year just to kind of hold it together, and we nailed some 2x4s in there, and we actually, if you drive up to it now, you'll see there's a white fascia, which is just a PVC vinyl fascia, and we actually put ice and water shield on the roof to let it survive for a couple more years while we looked at all of our options. So the structure's rotted, and what you can't see too is that picture to the left kind of shows the slab's all cracked, and it's kind of falling apart. So we looked at rebuilding the structure, we looked at cheap options, 4 posts and a small roof, and then we went to the best option we could, which is what you see in front of you. A 40 to 50 year steel structure, galvanized, do it once, no maintenance, and it's good. The problem we have with this, and the reason why we got so expensive after looking at these buildings in several different ways, is this building also becomes like a small IT cabinet. So what it does is, with our camera system that's up front, our gate controls that we plan on putting in, and other things are all going to be housed inside this building. So we wanted to put together a nice structure. I have no problem with the board's recommendation going back and looking at other options. I can just say that we wanted to start at the top down and come up with the best solution. So after looking at several companies and several different manufacturers, we toured this one in Harrison Township, and we were well aware of it. And everybody we talked to said, if you want to buy one shack and be done, this is the one to buy. So this one lasted since '74. We're hoping that we can put one in with no maintenance that'll last for another 30 to 50 years. Obviously, there's always issues, but you'll see at this park, we got a 22-acre park. We had $107,000 in gate revenue last year. We had 55,000 visitors to this park. We have a lot of people moving in and out of this park. We are going to spend money in this park. Just today, we got bids to replace the pier boards and also bids to replace the windows at the main building, all within our budget this year. So there's other things that we'll be bringing back. So I just wanted to bring this up so we could have a discussion and see where the board was at on how you wanted to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Comments from the board? Treasurer Elliott.
Josh, how comes such a big building?
It's really only, I can tell you exactly, I apologize, the square footage. It's a couple, that building was, the original building was 8 by 6. This is 10 by 12. So it's a little bit bigger because we got to house some IT cabinet in there. And what it is the other building had door walls. Well, those door walls never really worked. Hell, I think 2 of them were busted out. We had plywood in it for a while. We replaced the glass. I mean, it's just, this is a little bit wider. So if we do have a tenant in there, they can sit and open the window going to either side instead of having a door wall where they're kind of hanging out.
So this one is, you're saying this one's wider, so there's only so much space.
It will fit on, what we're going to do is, this project includes, sorry, I should have expanded a little bit,
Yeah.
just not on the guard shack. This project includes, Karen, if you'll go back one picture, sorry. If you'll see on that picture on the left, you can see that concrete pad. This also includes ripping out that pad and replacing it, because that pad is about broken in 6 places, and I think it's been caulked back together 17 times. So that includes ripping out the whole entire pad and replacing that, and then this pad will be the same size. But what we're going to do is we're going to go from the inside of that guard shack underground and come up, and we're going to prep for 2 guard arms. So basically what our goal is, sorry, I keep bumping the mic. Basically what our goal is at night, if we wanted to, we could close those gate arms or open them up depending on how we want to do it. We'd like to get to a kiosk option. Those are all things we want to discuss. It's just, it gives us a layer of security, and I know when those kids are in that booth, I wouldn't stick my own kid in there next year, and I don't plan to use it if we don't replace it or come up with another option, because it's just that bad.
You and I have had a lot of conversations about the people and I did too. So we've had a lot of conversation about having young people or different folks, and about safety, security, comfort, those types of things. And this booth is horrendous. And so I see the need for a booth. I didn't expect it to be this much, but then again, I have no point of reference on that. So how will, because we've also had the talk about the kiosk and the arm and automated arm, because as you can imagine, it's hard to staff, as we've run into. Sometimes this has been a difficult thing to staff. So eventually saving money on some of that by replacing some of the staff with a automated arm. But you were explaining to me, as we've been kind of observing the last couple of years, there's different ways that you're thinking you're going to use the booth. And I know that you've told me maybe a few of those, but can you reiterate, like, will this work for some of the different things that you guys have observed?
It will. I think our discussions that we're having now is to have it kind of not necessarily, if we're going to have a staff member out there, we don't have to have somebody in there all the time. It is nice, the park, like I said, it collected $107,000 in passes last year. And I can tell you from my experience, we took over the Google account for the park. And basically, we get all the comments that come in about Google. And I would say about 75% of the people say what they love about this park is they got room to spread out, they're not overrun with people, it's a nice balance. So having that gate fee, that $5, which is a nice cup of coffee, gets you in and gives us some money. Now, when we catch up on maintenance, we'll never be level with Brandenburg, I understand. But, if we were even, we'd be able to pull those gate fees out and pay for this. The problem is, no one's been doing maintenance for 20 years, and now all of a sudden we got to fix everything at that park. You'll see the next agenda item is related to the same thing.
Thank you. Any further questions? Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. $69,600 to have a high school age kid or younger, whatever the legal working age is, to sit in that shed. We had an experience last week, several trips across, leaving the country, putting money or charge cards in a little machine and the arm went up, you had the right amount. Why couldn't you reconfigure a turnaround if you can't do it and have, instead of having somebody sitting there, put something like you do when you use any of the turnpikes, when you go to Canada or things of that nature, instead of nearly a $70,000 investment? Just a thought.
We're going in that direction. Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just again, Trustee Anderson, you didn't have to bring up the trip to Canada, but the question becomes why do we spend $70,000, which is just a start, to put a building where we're going to staff somebody? What would, and a lot of the park fees are not individual transactions throughout the summer. I don't know if we have data, but I know a lot of people buy a summer pass and they get I could go to the car wash and the sticker in the window populates what kind of wash I'm going to get. No attendant, no. We have the cost associated with the attendants that work in the hut. We have the hut itself. And then why don't we go to just simply an automated, kiosk system and get away with the liability? Because I'll tell you another thing that bothered me outside of the environmental conditions for the worker was the obscene amount of cash that they had in the hut during busy weekends. And I think it's just a bad system all the way around. So instead of investing $70K into a new shack that we put the staff in the same situation, go automated. And I agree with you. I don't think it's safe to put summer staff in that building, not just because of the rain, but all the other conditions. And what would be so tragic if the residents who pay for the park got to go into the park for free for a while we worked it out? I don't know what amount of the revenue that is taken at the gate couldn't be done through a pass system and eliminate the need for the building and the need to put people in the building, to staff it. Again, I think I like the way that you phrased that there were other options. This was what you thought to be the best after looking around, but I think at a minimum we should look at other options before we go to the top end, when there seems to be some consensus on the board, and maybe even from you, that we get to an automated system and eliminate the need to staff it and have structure for the staff. I think it's a better vision to just go to a kiosk system, which we can do.
We are going in that direction. That's the next phase of it. This building is going to house some of the electronic components that have to be in that specific location for entry. And your reference to the car wash is exactly what we're looking at. Again, this is just the first component to it. We're going outside for designs and specs on it, hopefully this winter. And again, this building will house a major portion of those electronic components. Did I miss anything, Josh?
No, sir, just to kind of expand, and I apologize, I know you had mentioned other uses and exactly that. We just thought that when we were looking at this, we will have some kind of structure there because we have to house all of our electronic components. So it was just the idea that we had a little flexibility. If we're going to have a structure, why not have one big enough where if you did have an attendant, like sometimes when we have big events or you have big family parties, it's nice to have somebody sitting out there when you know you got a really heavy weekend. We have to expand on your automated controls. We've looked at everything. We even looked at, they have a QR code scanner and as soon as you drive up, it scans the window, and the gate opens as soon as you pull up. It's really, really slick. So we're looking at all those options. Everybody we just went back to said, hey, you got to have somewhere to house this. So we were looking at a big enough building to do multiple things instead of just one thing. So that's
Josh, why not I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak out of turn.
Treasurer Elder?
Just want to address a couple of things that Trustee Joseph said. First of all, we don't keep that kind of cash in there any longer. That's not something that's something that we've taken care of, and we have a process so that we don't have young people in that booth with cash. So it's an important thing to just acknowledge for safety purposes. And also, the data does reflect that most of the revenue is from the daily passes. So I think you asked about that. And my other question to you, Josh, is did you look at maybe smaller, similar buildings, and what is the price point on those if you did?
It sounds crazy, but shrinking this by a couple square feet doesn't really save you any money. You're really just buying a very well-built quality building that's all galvanized compared to just a shell structure. With this particular purchase, I will say you get what you pay for. Like I said, not naive to the fact that it's super expensive. I just wanted to bring the board up so we could have this discussion and see where the board was at, if you wanted to move forward with a one-and-done structure, or if you wanted us to kind of look at a less expensive option. My fear with a less expensive option is, once again, there's always maintenance to it and always cost, and you're going to constantly be dumping a little bit of money into it every year. And just, I hate to bring it up, but going back to the youth center roof, if we're going to have these structures, we got to maintain them. So we got to put money to these. We either fix them and keep them, or we just get rid of them.
Thank you. Any further questions? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, the paradigm that you lay out, if we're going to have a structure, one and done, but who says we need a structure? Like the other thing that you mentioned, I'm glad that the cash is resolved. If you go to the gate, let's just assume we have a gate. You have a camera on the gate. You have staff. We have a building at the park. We designate some space within the building in the park for gate-related transactions. So somebody pre-purchases a pass, you have a card reader, you can do different things with boaters. Why a gate attendant at the gate at all? You could restrict entry into the park through automation inside the park building that's already there, and a camera at the gate to deal with any transactional issues. Why do you have to have the staff at the gate? Like you open the gate, you have which maybe you could get some bang for your buck on the storage stuff too, because there are a lot of storage facilities. They have nobody on staff. Hundreds of thousands of square feet of storage space. It's all transacted from a remote office. We have the office on the grounds. Somebody has a problem at the gate. I already paid for a pass. Well, it's not reading. You buzz them in, the gate opens, and then they come over. We designate a couple of parking spots inside the existing building. They come in and deal with whatever their gate issue. No 70K and no remote satellite school-age kids transacting business, from the road. We have a number of options. So I think your paradigm is right. If your decision has been made that you need a building, I understand the logic with this particular, offering. But I don't know, it doesn't sound like the Parks and Rec even commission has, I'll just finish, I'll wrap up, Treasurer Elliott. I'm wondering if the Parks and Rec commission could maybe study this a little bit and look at some of the options and then make a recommendation to the board. I'd like to see it come that way as instead of the paradigm being, well, if we're going to have a building, I don't know if we need a building, and I think the jury's out on that.
David, when I first...
Treasurer Elliott.
Yeah, thank you. When I first looked at this, the first season I was here, I thought exactly the way that you did. Then I see how the building's used. And so I think some of the things is that it is similar. Yes, the concept of using that car wash concept does work, except for the thing is they also use this as a main building, a main place for people to come for various issues, and it could be everything that you could think of in the park. And I think that was what we have observed over the last 2 cycles, is that what we're seeing is since Josh and Stephanie have been watching it and kind of saying, how is this used? So when the park is busy and you've got every pavilion rented and the main building rented, this building was what they were thinking and what they had observed with this building would be the main, basically the main center.
This building at the gate?
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions from the board? I have a motion by Trustee DeMink, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 10J. Clerk Berry.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Nope.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, no.
Item 10K. When you're ready.
Item 10K is to approve a recommendation to install concrete at Brandenburg Park, including walkway, pickleball, courtside pad, bike rack pad, a barbecue foundation, and 6 ADA bench pads by Salace Concrete in an amount not to exceed $14,900.
Motion to approve.
We're back
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Mr. Sonnenberg, you want to address this?
We're back at Brandenburg. So this is to kind of expand on what we've been talking about. I'll kind of just go through this, and I really apologize. I can promise you that eventually we're going to get a better screen here so you can kind of see the details because they're hard to see. We're going to start up at the left by our new pickleball courts. And I just want to touch on the fact, if for those of you who have been out there and used those courts, we're in the process of, we're in the process of doing some repairs to those pickleball courts. The contractor's been out there in that area there. You'll see those, they started, but it's a process. We got some rust that's coming through. But since those pickleball courts have been in, they've got a ton of use. And one of the things that we've got asked for over and over, you'll see this green stretch, that concrete right there, that represents an 8-foot wide, approximately 100-foot long concrete sidewalk that we're going to put some benches on for not only the pickleball players, but what it does is there's another sidewalk on the other side. It gives you the ability to go from court to court with a wheelchair or a walker, which right now you don't have because the one sidewalk on the far end's really sloped, and then there's a ditch there, and it goes all the way around all the courts. So we're going to provide some ADA access with that sidewalk and wrap it in front of the pickleball court so we can put some benches for not only people that want to watch, but for the pickleball players. Across on the other side of that sidewalk, in the very front where the opposite corner, you can barely see it, but there's a little green square. We're going to put a new bike pad out there. We got a lot of people with electric bikes, and that's one of the things we've been asked for was a place to lock up their bikes. So we're going to put that there. And as you come down by the water, you can't really see, but there's a couple white spots on our drawing. There's 2 there, 1 there, and 1 over here. Those are pads that we're going to put in. If you've been out to our Salt River Nature Center or Weber, the benches that we're going to be installing now are going to be on a concrete pad with a bolt-on bench, a long-term bench that you can roll up, you can enjoy. Too many years ago when I started this project, I think we ripped out almost every bench in Brandenburg because they were sunk in 5-gallon buckets. The weeds would grow up around them. They were wood slats. They were really tired, and they were beyond their useful life. So we pulled majority of the benches out, except for those ones that are up along the walking path, the bike trail along Jefferson. So we want to go back to putting some benches in. That was in our budget for those park improvements, so we're going to put 6 benches in. What you can't see on this map is all the way to the right, over by Pavilion D. We've replaced, there was these little 2x2 barbecues at each pavilion. We replaced all the other pavilions with a big commercial-grade 4x4 barbecue, which I think I've gotten love letters from some of the residents about the barbecues. But we're going to add our last barbecue at Pavilion D, so then they'll all have brand-new barbecues. And this just goes in line with, you know, we replaced the picnic tables, we want to replace the benches, and these last little improvements just are bringing it back to what that park could and should be.
Thanks, sir. Questions from the board? Seeing no questions from the board, I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10K. Clerk Ray.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No?
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry. Aye.
Item 10L.
Item 10L is to approve a recommendation by the Department of Public Safety to renew our annual LexisNexis Desk Officer Reporting System Service and Maintenance Contract for 5 years at a rate of $13,410.60 for the first year, with a 3% increase for each year after, with the term beginning 10/1/2023 through 9/30/2028.
So moved.
Support.
Trustee Bing, supported by Trustee Anderson. Director Bassett, do you want to address this?
This is a request for renewal of LexisNexis, which is our reporting system. We've used this for several years. It's been effective. The only change is we went and tried to do a little bit longer contract to see if we can get some price guarantees, and we were able to achieve that. And that is what is before you.
Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, I have a motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Anderson, to approve item 10L. Clerk Perry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry. Aye.
Item 10M.
Item 10M is to approve a request by the Department of Public Safety to pay $12,067 in tuition to send 2 cadets to the Macomb and Oakland Police Academies. We have applied and been approved for a grant which will cover the cost of their tuition, equipment for the academy, and payroll expenses. Chesterfield Township must disperse the funds first. We will then submit proof of payment and be reimbursed.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Second?
Treasurer Elliott. Director Bassett.
Just one item. This is our second round of sending recruits to the academy. One change in the grant that has occurred is previously the academy and the state were actually paying each other directly. Well, I'm sorry, the state was paying the academy directly. That has now changed. The grant is now requiring us to expend the funds. Once we've expended those funds, then we can submit for the grant and get reimbursement.
Questions from the board? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10M. Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry. Aye.
Item 10N.
Item 10N is to approve a recommendation by the Department of Public Safety to authorize payment to EMCO Inc. in the amount of $9,121.06 for the use of their Police Assessment Development Center in interviewing candidates for the position of police lieutenant.
So moved.
Trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Director Bassett.
Again, this is a request for our most recent lieutenant's promotional exam that we did, and we currently have an active list, and also reflects the change in contract going for assessment centers for our promotions.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments from the board? Clerk Barry.
Just a question. I was always wondering, why is it so expensive? I assume that most of what you would need space for, I would think, for assessments has already been done there. I'm not sure what kind of testing is done that runs $9,000. And I've seen it before on board agendas, but I was just wondering for myself and for the residents that might be wondering, why this isn't done through the Human Resource Department. Why does it have to be done this way and cost us $9,100 to promote from within?
So, and it's a great question because, to be blunt, it is expensive. Unfortunately, I've been through a couple of these processes, and the assessment centers themselves are probably the most realistic thing I've ever experienced, where they're trying to, basically what they do is they take a candidate and take him through an entire day's testing. So this isn't where we sit somebody down and give them an hour's test. They're literally, we have a panel of 3 assessors, and then there's also somebody actually coordinating it. So typically you're gonna have 4 people from the organization. In this case, it's MCO. They're going to be there for the entire day, putting each candidate through all of these different, we'll call them tasks. And what it tries to do, again, is replicate the day in whatever that position is. So in this case, it's trying to replicate a day of what a lieutenant's what a lieutenant's tasks are going to be. In my experience, it is probably the best way of trying to assess, is this individual ready for this position? The challenge of things like written tests or even just an interview panel where you ask a set of questions, that really identifies one skill set. It identifies somebody. Some people are really great at answering a set of 8 questions in an interview. Some people are really great at, reading 3 textbooks and being able to regurgitate that. They're a lot smarter than me, right? So those are the challenges. This takes different sets, different skill sets, and then tries to take all of those different things and blend them together and then give you the ranking for whoever it is that's put in for the position.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, just a question. You have two candidates, 2 sergeants going through this process. And they both, this evaluation comes back, or whatever you want to call it, they rate one over the other one. Is that the person that'll be promoted within Chesterfield Department?
So with the contract, they're, depending on which position, you're also going to have seniority points, and then, and I apologize because I'm looking at, but it's, for lack of a better term, I'll call it director points. So I'm able to add in different assessment points, or I'm sorry, there's the assessment points, the seniority points, and then the director is able to also put in a series of points. In the current, it's you're gonna have 90% is the assessment, then 5%, 5%. So I don't know if that answers the question, trustee.
Considerably number 1 out of this assessment center is still number 2 for promotion.
That is correct.
Okay.
Trustee Joseph, did you have?
No, sir. Right.
Any further? Trustee DeMing.
Well, Hank's got some more.
Third point, how long with this evaluation, you have the two mythological candidates go through it, how long successfully, is it contractually predicated as how long the list will be for the rank of lieutenant? That's from the union contract thing versus anything else?
The contract dictates that. Okay. How long the list is active for? Is that the question?
Yeah, how long, how long would they both successfully go through, and you might need another 1 or 3 years from now. It's
going to be 1 year from the first promotion.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee DeMing.
So this is for the current list that you already made the promotion for, correct?
Correct.
How many total sergeants took it?
How many total sergeants took it?
Yeah.
5. Sorry.
5 sergeants took it, so it was $9,000. And MCO is used by all the other departments. A lot of them use it for sergeant and for other departments just for hiring on. It's a standard, and it also goes to a third party, so you don't have a lot of in-person picking and choosing like that. So MCO is used by everybody. They're out in Troy. I've had dealings with them at where I work, so thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by Trustee DeMink, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 10N. Clerk Berry.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10O,
Item 10O is to approve a request by the Department of Public Safety to renew their 5-year contract with DVS Analytics for maintenance software of phone recording and hardware support in the amount of $31,057 for the term starting 1/1/2024 through 12/31/2029.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Clerk Berry? Director Bassett?
And the final item that I have for you this evening is just our system that records the telephone lines. Obviously, in today's day and age, it's essential. This is, again, the same system that we have been using. It's been effective. We haven't had any issues. The only change is we were looking for a little bit longer term, again, to try and get some price guarantees moving forward, and that is what is before you today.
Questions from the board? Questions from the board? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, seconded by Clerk Berry to approve item 10O. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 11, addendums, there are none. Item 12, public comments. If you would, please state your name for the record, not required. The 3-minute time limit will begin when you speak. Floor is open.
My name is Joe Kadich. I live on Sutton. I want to get back to the presentation over the sewer problem. Before I do that, I'd like to, there was a lot of discussion about the booth for the Brandenburg Park and what could be done and what should be done with it, rather than spend this 70 and then I guess another 25,000. Does anybody realize that that booth is only utilized 4 months a year? You got 8 months before you need it again. And then it's used for 4 months. You could do a lot figuring out what you want to end up with the automatic gate or whatever it takes to get in there, rather than just spending $70,000 right now and some afterwards. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Getting back to the sewer and water problem, I wish somebody would stand up and at least bring Candace Miller back in here, or even Dan Echevetti, and tell us what their responsibility is and what money comes out of their budget, and do they budget enough to take care of this problem with the storm sewers. It's really, really aggravating having to go through, and I didn't have the storm sewer problem. I had a sanitary sewer problem, which I want to get into because there was nothing said about that other than the fact they think that the covers on the sanitary sewer were loose, got water in. It's quite possible. But the only way you're really going to discover that if you monitor the flow, there's pumps where this stuff goes through. I don't know if you can get it to each sewer line, but it's monitored as to what goes through that sanitary sewer before it gets down to Macomb County. There's a scientific way to determine whether that's the problem. The other thing is, I've had a problem in the past with the pump station at the end of Chesterfield off of Sutton. It's probably 25 years ago, but my basement flooded 2 times. Fortunately, I hadn't done anything with it. It wasn't finished. And it cost me maybe $600 or $700 to get somebody in to sanitize it and get it out of there. But what had happened is there's 2 pumps, two pumps in that station, and they were going. And nobody did anything with them. And finally they went and had a rain, wasn't much of a rain, but everything backed up because the pumps were pumping the sewage down the line. Now, I don't know what's going on to look at that part of the problem.
Thank you, sir. Time's up. Comments from the public?
Paul Lafata. On the flooding, I took a lot of time to do some research on flooding and the reasons, and I sent the board a email. You guys should seriously look at it, because you can spend all the money you want fixing the Meldum drain or anything else, but if you read what I sent you, it's going to say one of the major issues was there was no defined responsibilities between the state and the city for the flooding. There was no weekly, monthly, yearly documentation of who did what as far as maintaining the infrastructure in New Orleans that caused the flooding. There was no documentation of upgrades made for growth, because the more you grow, the more impervious surfaces you get, the more you have to improve your infrastructure so it goes into the lake. But we're gonna go blinded, and we're gonna give the county $100,000 for what's their responsibility, because if you look at the invoice, it said, there's an invoice that says MID, Operations and Maintenance, which is our sewer, and there's another one that says Maintenance and Operations General. So we're paying the County Drain Commission for something that we're not getting. And I guess, I don't think I have a mouse in my pocket though, our township board and our township director and everybody else is afraid to broach the Drain Commission to find out why. But you can keep spending your money, and it's not going to fix the problem, because there's a lot more to the problem than the Meldum drain. There's been growth, there's more impervious surfaces, the engineering specs are antiquated. All this you have to take in consideration before you start throwing money at it, or you're going to waste it. The housing for the booth, that current booth lasted 59 years. Galvanized steel going to last 59 years? I could brick and mortar that building for less than $69,000, and if you amortize the cost of that, it'll probably last another 59 years. Galvanized steel doesn't have a lifetime of 59 years. So nobody does the math. Everything that's done out there is what I call an art. Nobody looks at the facts and the data for the end result, and if it's the best decision to be made. Everybody, politicians, unfortunately, they have visions, and then they rely on their skill sets to make them happen, which a lot of times you don't have the skill sets.
Thank you, sir. Further comments? Further comments?
Janice Young, 28714 Yorkshire. First, I'd like to congratulate the board on spending $270,000 tonight of our money. Luckily, we escaped $35,000 of that, of the original $306,000. I also would like to congratulate the board on still not being able to figure out how to balance the agenda from meeting to meeting. The last meeting had 3 items. Today had 16 items. I don't know, maybe you could have put the Halloween items, Halloween hours on the last meeting to shorten up this one. Just a thought. Doesn't seem like it really should be that complicated to figure out, but unless, of course, there's some underlying reason why you guys make the meetings heavy on one week and not another. But I've definitely seen a pattern over the last 10 months. So if I'm wrong, I'd like you to correct me and let me know what the reason is for that. Supervisor Kersten, I emailed you for clarification on your statement near the end of the last meeting. On 9/26, you said, hate the game, don't hate the players. My first email I sent to you was on September 30th, and again, I sent it to you this morning, and you haven't responded. Will you please explain what you meant by that? I think a lot of residents would like to know that. Also, I'm still waiting on the cost from the Bass Festival. I don't think you've ever put those costs up there. And now you're wanting to spend more money at the park, another $70,000 on that building, another $25,000 for the electronic arm. You told me yourself that that park's been operating at a deficit for a very long time. I think if I heard Josh correctly tonight, he even said that, he said never be level at that park. I think he meant financially, never be level. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But you keep spending money on this park, and it's not making money, it can't sustain itself. So what are we doing here, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for another Bass Festival? Is that the end result here? And then Treasurer Elliott, after the last meeting, I approached you after the meeting, and I talked to you, and you said that I could email you with any questions, which I did. And you neglected to tell me, though, that you were going to defer all my questions to your FOIA coordinator. So I really didn't get any answers from her. You did answer one of my questions out of the 12 that I asked. And then the FOIA coordinator said that one was an incomplete request and they couldn't answer it. And I also didn't realize that there was a charge for FOIA. So most residents probably didn't know that. So if they're going to submit that, they have to expect to pay a cost for that. Real quick, you also told me that in the beginning that you thought I was a rational person. It's very kind of you. And during that conversation, you made some sort of reference to me to not be like others, and you motioned out to where Mr. Speaker was standing talking to somebody. Maybe there's issues between you guys. That has nothing to do with me. I'm not, cohorting with anybody. They're residents just like me. They're here because they're trying to figure out what's going on in our township. And maybe they have a secondary agenda. I do not. Anyway, I just say all this to prove to the residents that are watching that this board is unresponsive. You've proven it to me personally. You've been unresponsive to me. It's not just hearsay from what other residents are saying. So there you go.
Thank you, ma'am.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Ms. Young, don't take offense that Treasurer Elliott couldn't answer your questions. She's not qualified to answer the questions. That's why she deferred you to do a FOIA. In regards to the $69,000 that was spent for an upside-down galvanized trash can, Supervisor Kersten, Treasurer Elliott, Kathy Vosberg, and Mr. Demink, you'd all be fired for that decision if you were in the private sector. Mr. Supervisor Kersten, the question was asked at the last, or the one prior to it. Have you turned in those 2 prep radios that you're in possession of? And if you haven't, I'd like to know why, and why the director hasn't taken those from you, because you're no longer a sworn officer, so you shouldn't be in possession of them. To answer your question, Mr. Joseph, on the $500,000 that was offered for the property, this is pay to play now with Mr. Kersten and, Treasurer Elliott. So if you look at their donations to their campaigns, there's a pattern. And it's quite evident. You got to look hard, but you're going to find that pattern. Just to give you an example, Mr. Demink is a huge supporter of Mr. Kersten. We know that. On there, Mr. Kersten gets support from Mr. Toma and large amounts of money. He also gets support from Jason Irma for the sign. Mansur Company's another big supporter of Mr. Kersten, and they had to do with Chick-fil-A. And on Kathy Elliott's side, you're going to find a lot of same supporters for her. Joe Irma, Toma Investment, which is Mr. Servos, Mr. Seberg, which donates to both Mr. Kersten and Miss Elliott, jars to Kathy Elliott, and Mr. Aiello to Kathy Elliott. The amazing part is this. When Kathy Elliott ran, she was opposed to cannabis. When Brad ran, he was opposed to cannabis. So now JARS is going up. Kathy Elliott, I believe, is a member of Evident Church. I don't know how I'd be able to walk into that church and look at my members and my pastor in good faith when now you're taking money from cannabis. Are you kidding me? You were totally against it. You and Ms. Vosberg put a flyer out to vote no against it. I mean, I understand there's other people on this board that take money, but they were for it. You guys were against it. That's what I call hypocrites. I mean, you're in bed with cannabis now. I don't know how you could look at yourself in the mirror and your family. It's mind-boggling.
Thank you, sir. Further comments from the public?
Mike Orton, 50393 Bauer. Just continuing what, every single meeting I've done since it's been put in place, I do still wish we could revisit the recent restrictions on comments. Time and time again, we've shown that we can police ourselves up here. So I do not understand why it has to still be limited only at 3 minutes. If, it's not, I'm not even saying anything about going back to what it was before, though before there was no problems. But why not expand this point in time to 5 minutes instead of 3? There is no excuse as to why not. There are only 11 people in the audience here tonight, and not everyone likes to do public speaking. You will never end up in a time constraint situation because people don't like to speak in public. That's just a natural fear for most people. And in saying that, it also helps with the board as well. Because if you're only limited to 3 minutes in your closing comments, you probably would be better off having 5. There's no excuse as to if you had it on the agenda to have an APO change for tonight, there's no reason you can't come back and visit this at the next meeting or any time period where it's adjustable. You made the rules, you can change it back. Now, with that being said, there was an awful lot of spending here tonight. This is one of those meetings where it just seemed like it was like a nonstop checklist. And as Young said, it was right. There is an imbalance in the way these meetings are. Some meetings, there are only like 6 agenda items, whereas tonight there was, 15 or 16 items? Not to mention we also had the presentation before the agenda. And that seems like a very crowded meeting, especially now with our time constraints. We were getting out here earlier than previous meetings we had over the summer. I know there was one meeting that was 6 hours, but this is still pretty late for now having these time constraint meetings. I think that this is one of those situations where you need to start figuring out how to actually run it as a board, because it feels like you don't. It really feels like this is just amateur hour. And, I know all of you are older than me. I should not be criticizing you on that sort of notation on professionalism. Aside from all that, it was a great showing that was out for the fire open house, and it was really good for families and kids especially, and learning all about the important and necessary functions of the fire department, as well as fire safety and protection and prevention of fire. We need to invest more in our fire department. What you saw is what is being done on a daily basis, but needs to be done more. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from the public?
Christopher Pierrick, Embassy Street. I just want to thank the board for no motion on item A for the proposed changes to the APO, and I'd like to thank the board for no support on item F for the reconstruction of 23 Mile Road. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any further comments? Any further comments? Bring it back up to the board. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you to the last speaker there. Thank you. That's exactly what I felt. You feel dejected getting your 3 minutes gratitude from this benevolent board, but don't feel alone. As your representatives, you put us here, we're allowed 3 minutes by the gracious group that occupy the chairs up here. So I want to stay positive. Meeting on September 26th, there's 2 board members absent. There were 3 items that cost money, and I'll look at it. Or public safety budgeted $11,600 for virtual academy. 1 year of plate readers, $12,500. Upgrades for our radios, $23,000. Total spent 2 weeks ago was $47,100. Tonight, through the wisdom of the board, they dropped the almost $1 million expense over the railroad track. The youth center's still up in the air, $35,000 there. We don't know where that's going to be. Grand total for the night with a full board was right around $200,000 spent. I'm going to, history lesson. At your convenience, look up the Golden Fleece Award and William Proxmire. If you in this room know what I'm talking about. Google that, the Golden Fleece Award, and take a look at it and see if anything applies. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. A couple of comments were redundant or covered on a couple of different ways. Closing, Mr. Anderson, you're right. If you really want to save money, create a special assessment district just for vacations. So send one of them on vacation and you can save probably $250,000 every board meeting. We'll just have proclamations for National Coney Dog Week or something along those lines, and you'll make out in the end. The booth, I don't understand that. You're right, Mr. Kadich. 4 months a year, we need a booth. We had presentation that was a sales presentation. I don't like those sales presentations that start off with, as a resident and as a taxpayer, you're the department head, please present the facts. And I realize it becomes difficult for department heads to come up anything over 5,000, and you'd much rather avoid the pitch altogether, but I don't appreciate the pitch, and I don't appreciate, I thought I was in a debate. We started to discuss the kiosk and different things, and it was already determined. They were buying the building, and I kind of got sucked in on that and thought we were in a debate. That was a foregone conclusion. I should have saw that coming and just saved some time. The comment about last board meeting, there was an agenda item that was pulled from the bill run having to do with a $20,000 expense for the splash pad, which was deemed an emergency. I asked the supervisor about it. He said he wasn't going to comment because it had already been asked and answered. Later on in the week, I got an email indicating that was just a lie. There was no discussion about asked and answered. The fact is that there was damage to the pump, and there was an insurance claim. The $20,000 expenditure was the result of an insurance claim. The township was reimbursed from the insurance company. I don't know what caused the damage, but it certainly wasn't asked and answered. Had it been just simply stated, we could have wrapped up. I don't like the 3-minute timeline, and I don't like the very insensitive and grotesque, finger across the throat when the buzzer goes off. Seems like a 10-second grace period or so to let somebody finish their thought would be good. And lastly, I would just like to say, I really hope this board gets some direction on where our HR department is at. The question that was raised 2 weeks ago about where are we with the firefighters contract, we were told we'd have a closed session today. That was a lie. We don't need the council to direct us. We direct council, and I would like to know what we are doing, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, with these firefighters. To leave them without a contract this long is just pure incompetence, and I demand that we have an update.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Domingue?
Trustee Joseph, was that vacation comment directed at me?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, I'm just checking because that vacation was planned back in June, and okay, I just wanted to check that. Yeah, and I was gone for 2 meetings, and I was in Europe. So I'm entitled to my vacations, and that's where I was. If anybody wants to know where I was in Europe for 2.5 weeks with my girlfriend. So that's why I missed a couple meetings. Thank you, and have a great night.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for having the progress report on the storm event and the causes that we're learning about, and looking forward to continued information, and especially in the type that will help individual homeowners to learn more about how they can take care of their property to prevent loss in the future. And I want to address a comment. No, we are not in the private sector, and it's a good thing we're not. We are public servants. We're charged with helping, keeping, and making this community a safe place to work, live, and play.
Treasurer Elliott.
The only thing I have to say tonight is that for those who are affected by what is happening in Israel, and I would just like to say that our thoughts are with you. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I don't normally talk about what my no votes are, but since I have 3 minutes, I figured I would use that just to say that I think that putting a building for $69,000 at Brandenburg Park, and I'd done the math as well, I knew it was for 4 months. I just think we're going in the wrong direction there. I think if we're modernizing, we make it a priority here oftentimes to try to prioritize, streamline, and modernize our operations, and I don't think that that's going in that direction, and I just couldn't support it. With regards to the issue of the youth center, that is specifically something that I was interested in. When I saw it on the agenda, I wasn't aware of it until I saw it, until it came in. But as far as our records position is here in Chesterfield, first off, Laserfish, which is a content management program, has been in the township not for 12 years. I brought it in back in 2015. I think 2014, 2015 is when the board gave approval on that. So that's really only about 8 years. And I agree, it's been highly underutilized, and let me tell you why. We simply did not have administrations over that time that was willing to enforce it, that made the employees use it. Employees who said, I don't want to use it, supervisor said, okay, don't use it. You don't want to use it. The clerk said, you need to use it. Supervisor or someone else would say, no, you don't. So, I mean, that's just the reality. And that's something that we've been, it's been a challenge for us for many years since we've had it. Now, the building department was very excited when we got it, and they've used it extensively. Clerk's department has used it extensively. But I agree with Supervisor Kersten, we need to use it more. It needs to be the township's content management system. And the board actually did make a motion and did approve that quite some years ago. The board adopted that unanimously. So, but implementation has been challenging simply because we haven't had the enforcement mechanism. So, looking forward to seeing that. Also, we have 2 new coordinators. The other challenge that we've had is staffing. We were without a records coordinator for a while, and then our records coordinator also had to be our election coordinator. So elections does prioritize over records. So we had to do some prioritizing there, and we simply did not have the staff. Clerks across the state of Michigan will tell you that we are tasked with doing more and more with less and less resources every single year, and next year is going to be considerably challenging for all of us. We are all still trying to figure out how we're going to manage that. So I am looking to streamline our department and to set it up such that we can do that most effectively. We have 2 new coordinators now. Our records coordinator has been on site for 8 weeks. She's doing great. Our election coordinator just started last week, and we'll give you an update on that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make it real quick. There is a closed session tonight. The Booth Park and plan that everybody wants to get and have comments on. The plan for the Booth Park is that will be a year-round park. It won't just be used for summertime. The plans moving forward for automated systems, entering, exit, and how it is accounted for by the users. That will be forthcoming once this design is finalized and set forward, and again, we'll bring it back to the board. As I said earlier, the Drain Commissioner is willing to hold a public meeting here during office hours in the township. We will schedule that. Hopefully that will be within the next 10 days. We are still awaiting the response from the state of Michigan and FEMA in regards to our emergency declaration to help those individuals that were affected by the rain. And just a quick comment, our HR department is fine, it is operational, and Mr. Duchesne is still available to us, along with our legal counsel, and everything is functioning as expected. In regards to updates and status, we follow existing languages and labor agreements, and the specific union that was mentioned tonight, we're in that process, and we'll continue to be in that process. When there's something that is worthwhile and worth note, we'll bring it back to the board, and we'll address it in closed session as been done in the past and historically. So that being said, I will take a motion to enter into closed session at 9:56.
Motion to enter closed
Clerk
session
Berry?
to consider the purchase of real property pursuant to Section 81D of the Michigan Open Meetings Act.
Motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by,
I made the motion.
I'm sorry.
Do that.
I will support that motion. I'm sorry, Clerk
Thank
Berry.
you.
Go ahead and call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
If we can go to the North Annex room, it should. Motion to return to open session at
You gotta turn on your mic.
Sorry. Motion to return to open session at 10:22.
Support?
Motion by Supervisor Kersten, support by Clerk Barry. Clerk Barry, call the roll.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Trustee Vosper?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
An action out of closed session, there will be a motion to proceed with the continued acquisition of properties, plural, as discussed. Is there a motion to, Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to support that.
Second.
Second by Trustee Demink. Clerk Barry?
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Vosper?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Support?
Trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned, 10:24.